The miniature version of Sinisura is still quite cute. Like a figurine, it hangs down along the branches. He appeared before the two of them. Fang Hao was all right. He noticed the swaying of the tree crown and realized that Sinisura was changing. But Air still let out a soft gasp, clearly startled. She only calmed down after recognizing the image as Sinisura. My lord, the Quangling City army has withdrawn, and the Lord of Copperbowl City is preparing for the next round of negotiations, the miniature Sinisura said. Fang Hao nodded. Okay, let me know when the negotiation time is confirmed, and I will send Jia over. Judging from the current situation, the possibility of a peaceful resolution is slim. Whether it's the feud between Quangling City and Elf Tribe that has lasted for more than a decade, or Njia's resentment over what she once suffered. All of these factors would make it easier for these negotiations to escalate into war. In particular, orcs have always believed in the law of the jungle. The strong have the right to speak and also have more privileges. Quangling City may not see itself as a weaker party, nor does it necessarily view Dream Forest and Tusco City as an alliance between the weak. The negotiations will obviously not succeed at that time, but Fang Hao still chose to negotiate. First, to delay the start of the war. Try to bring the start of the war as close as possible to the end of the Otis Great Necropolis War. Secondly, it also serves as a statement to the other affiliated forces. The desire for peace is something that Lord Fang Hao needs to maintain. Otherwise, the wars would continue so frequently, starting with Bafing Mountain, Necropolis, and now Quangling City. It's easy to give people the impression of being eager for public service and belligerent. Therefore, negotiations must still be held, even if it is known that a peaceful resolution is impossible. Understood, Sinisura said, and her miniature body quickly disappeared. It turned back into its original branches. After a while, Air then spoke up. Master, this tree also has the ability to transmit messages? Probably, Fang Hao said, though he wasn't entirely sure. The ability to transform into the form of Sinisura is likely another power of the oak tree. Oak from the same root. Even though Dream Forest is so far from the main city, it can still be connected in some way to transform into the form of Sinisura and transmit messages. Or rather, this oak tree is an alter ego of Sinisura. It allows for free shifts in consciousness. This is quite convenient. Messages can be transmitted in real time. It seems to be somewhat similar to my own Divine Descent. It's farther away than Divine Descent and works better. I also need to be careful about how I interact with Air and the others here in the future. It wouldn't be good if we got caught. After explaining the matter of Dream Forest, I continued to rest my head on Air's lap, reading the novel I had bought. Wow, the weather is really nice. After lunch, we returned from Skeleton Craftsman. Along the way, I saw the proprietress Vanessa, who was holding a lampshade in her arms. Lord, Vanessa smiled and bowed. Good afternoon, boss lady. Fang Hao smiled back. I hid in the main city for the entire winter. Vanessa's skin has become fairer and more voluptuous, and she no longer looks like the small-town business owner she used to be. It resembles a ripe peach, juicy and plump. Hearing Fang Hao still address her as boss lady, Vanessa rolled her eyes at him. Then he said, Sir, the lampshade in my room is broken. Could you please replace it for me? Those skeletons are too stupid. Oh, so it's just that the lampshade needs to be replaced. Okay, let's go. Vanessa does not have a separate place to live. She only has one room in a building. Fang Hao set rules for the people in his territory, which allowed heroes to own detached houses, private hot springs, gardens, and certain privileges. The same goes for maids. They all want to become heroes. Then you can move out of here and own your own detached house. This is also why maids now drags Jia to exercise every day. Vanessa was in the same boat, training all winter, but her progress was slow. She was currently only at Tier 3, making her a Tier 3 warrior. Follow Vanessa into the room. The room was very clean, with a bed and a set of table and chairs. There was also paper and pen on the table, on which Vanessa had written down some wine recipes. Is this the light? Fang Hao pointed to the ceiling. A single nightstone. The nightstone chandelier has a lampshade. When taking a break, you can lower the lampshade to cover the nightstone. It serves to turn off the lights. Yes, Vanessa said. Fang Hao nodded and pulled a chair next to him under the chandelier. This is a job that ordinary skeletons really can't do. You order the lamp to be taken down, and the skeleton can do it. You say to take off the lampshade. The skeleton might not try to unfasten the clips, but instead simply pull it off. Standing on the chair, Fang Hao looked up and reached out to remove the broken lampshade. Below, Vanessa, who was helping to hold the chair, glanced around slightly. I'll help you a bit. Good. Vanessa placed her hand on his leg. However, halfway through the switch, Fang Hao then felt a soft sensation on his leg. Vanessa was leaning against her thigh, her delicate little hands slipping under her clothes. She reached inside her clothes and gently stroked her abdomen. Vanessa glanced down, her face flushing slightly, and she looked somewhat surprised. With the help of dragon potion and daily exercise, Fang Hao is quite confident in her figure. He has 8-pack abs and well-defined pectoral muscles. It's not the kind of muscle that's overtrained and exaggerated. Its shape is very symmetrical. Vanessa, her eyes filled with surprise, unconsciously touched it with her little hand. It made him feel all itchy inside. He bent down and tapped her forehead. Are you taking advantage of me? Vanessa blushed and forced a smile. She turned her head to the side and said, Sister, touch your brother. What's wrong? When the two first met, Vanessa used to call him her younger brother, but after learning Fang Hao's true identity, she could only address him as master. When outside, one should also bow and pay attention to etiquette. Fang Hao ignored her, threw the broken lampshade aside, and replaced it with a new one. After everything was changed, I got off the chair. Vanessa's face turned even redder. She used to tell dirty jokes to customers on tavern, but now she acts like a little girl. Boss lady, your face is too red, Fang Hao joked. Vanessa glared at him. What's red about you? Your face is the one that's red. I picked up the water glass next to me and poured him a glass of fruit wine. He continued, sit down for a while. I have something to tell you. Fang Hao's heart skipped a beat. This boss lady's loyalty level probably isn't 100. I must say, after this winter, the proprietress has become more and more charming. Okay. Fang Hao took the fruit wine and sat down to the side. Vanessa thought for a moment and continued. It's not a big deal, really. Winter's over. Give me some work. I can't just stay here like this forever. About this. That makes sense when you think about it. Vanessa wasn't a maid. She spent the winter in the city and wasn't assigned any work. He trained with the maid in the training ground every day, and he was trained to become a third-tier warrior. Winter is over, so it's normal to be thinking about finding a job. Fang Hao recalled all the shops. The shops in Pearl and Lysis are all operating normally now, so there's no need for her to go there. How about this? I'm also planning to open a hot pot restaurant in Silverwing City in the Federation. And you can be the boss then. The idea of opening a shop in Silverwing City has actually been planned for a long time. However, many things happened, and I forgot about it. Now that Vanessa has found him, he immediately thought of this matter. The shop still needs to stay open. We can't keep putting it off like this. This can be seen from the fact that Li Rong was able to attend aristocratic banquets, whether it's to expand one's network or for some kind of collaboration. The nobility accepted wealthy people as members. At that time, opening more shops in Silverwing City and squeezing his own people into the elite circle would also be beneficial to him. Silverwing City? You can open a shop in Silverwing City. Vanessa's eyes widened. Silverwing City was something she had only heard of. The core city of the 100 Cities Federation is where only the most privileged and powerful reside. So would you like to go? I'm willing. Vanessa nodded, then hesitated. You already have a shop? Not yet. Let's wait a few days in the city. I'll arrange for someone to take care of things at the shop then, Fang Hao said. Fang Hao wasn't too worried about the shop. Given Rebecca and Olivia's close friendship, it shouldn't be a problem to ask her to keep an eye out for the store. I'll just buy the shop myself when the time comes. Oh, okay. Vanessa nodded. After finalizing the details of the shop, the room was rather quiet. Fang Hao, do you still remember my tavern? Vanessa asked again. When Fang Hao first went to Pearl, he often visited Vanessa's tavern. His purpose was to check the bounty quests on the tavern bulletin board, while Vanessa thought he was interested in her. She also said that she was too young to be thinking about these things all the time. In that area where commoners lived, Vanessa was a famous beauty. Among the drinkers at Rose Tavern are quite a few men with ideas. Having seen so many subtle advances, she naturally assumed Fang Hao was one of them. Later, the city lord colluded with the vampires and sold a group of civilians to them. They were rescued by Fang Hao's people along the way. It was then that she learned that Fang Hao possessed such a vast territory, as well as a multitude of undead. I remember, it was a very popular tavern, always packed with customers, Fang Hao said. I still can't believe that I can go out, even put on a formal suit, and attend a noble banquet. Things will get better in the future, believe me, Fang Hao said with a smile. Vanessa nodded, cleared her throat, and said, when we're alone, I'll still call you little brother, okay? Okay, by the way, I've learned some massage techniques. Would you like me to give you a massage? Vanessa's face turned even redder. Her face flushed, and the atmosphere began to feel a little awkward. Fang Hao also became a little nervous. Okay. After saying that, he lay down on the bed. Vanessa stepped forward, sat on the edge of the bed, and gently pressed on his back and waist. And at this time, a voice called from downstairs. Master, Mr. Bach is looking for you. It's a round voice. Is it because they can't find him that everyone in the city is starting to shout for him? Fang Hao sat up, glanced at Vanessa, who was still a little red, and said, Next time, come to my room next time. After saying that, he walked outside. Vanessa was left alone, her face flushed. On his way downstairs, Fang Hao glanced at the Lord's book. Vanessa gives you 98 points for your loyalty. It indeed reached a certain level. Although it didn't reach 100 points, 98 is already considered quite high. It's normal to have some special feelings. He went downstairs and found Yuan, who told him that Bach had come to see him because he had made leather shoes according to the blueprint and wanted him to come and take a look. Fang Hao nodded and walked towards Tanner's area, Lizardman's main city, Zethrin. Surrounded by a group of Lizardman officials, Queen Anastasia slowly ascended the long stone steps. At the end of the 1,000 stone steps stood a magnificent temple. The walls are towering and the pavilions are majestic. An aura of majesty and antiquity descended. Ancient Holy Temple. It is the tallest building in the entire Zethrin, even taller than the Queen's Palace. This represents the status of the ancient sage in everyone's hearts. What do you think? The environment here should be more suitable for our lives than where you are, Queen Anastasia said to someone beside her as they walked. To the Queen's right is Dimitrika, who was invited to the event. Dimitrika nodded. Yes, very good. The climate here is indeed more suitable for the lizard man to live in. Of course, the reason this place remains peaceful and tranquil is largely because other races cannot adapt to the environment here. If you wish, you can come and live here anytime. With your abilities, you can have a higher status, a better life, and even more in the Holy Dynasty, the Queen continued. At this time, the Lizard Queen, no longer beating around the bush, directly tried to win her over. Opportunities without Fang Hao are rare, so if you hesitate any longer, you'll only miss out. Upon hearing the Queen's words, Dimitrika simply walked on in silence, offering no response. The Queen, still unwilling to give up, continued. The Holy Dynasty's strength is gradually weakening. The ancient saints are no longer guiding us, and fewer of our people are becoming heroes. If this continues, we may have to withdraw from the stage of this world, becoming a small, nameless force on the fringes, and eventually be swallowed up by the greater powers. Dimitrika paused slightly, hesitating for a moment. He said, If we seize this opportunity, the Holy Dynasty will receive support and assistance. The Queen frowned slightly, her brown vertical pupils revealing a hint of doubt. I'm pondering the meaning of that sentence. Is this telling myself to seize the opportunity to form an alliance with Fang Hao? Transmigrators can possess such power. Even if both sides have expressed their willingness to form an alliance, it's not really a question of whether one side should seize the opportunity. Or perhaps Dimitrika knows something. That Fang Hao's strength is far greater than what she has seen. After a brief silence, the Queen did not continue the discussion. He simply introduced the city's buildings and some things about the city in a low voice. We continued upwards until we arrived at the temple. The temple was much taller and more imposing than it appeared from below. Standing on the smooth stone steps, priest Tic-Tacta led several ancient priests and walked quickly out from inside. A simple purification ceremony was held in front of the door. The Queen and Dimitrika paid their respects at the gate. They then stepped into the temple. The main hall is magnificent and splendid. It exudes an ancient and weathered atmosphere, filled with a heavy and majestic feeling. The temple's stone pillars are carved with lifelike sculptures, and the walls on both sides are also carved with scenes of lizardman rituals. At the center of the temple stands a tall altar. On the altar, a huge statue sat. The statue resembles the lizard man, but its face is blurred and its features are indistinct. The Queen and Dimitrika knelt and worshipped before the statue. Meanwhile, a lizard man priest began chanting incantations, reciting priestly words. The ceremony was short. When it's all over, the Queen, accompanied by a group of lizard man executives, emerged from the temple. There was no discussion about the lizard man who was personally accompanied by the Queen, but one could guess what was going on. A few days ago, a stranger suddenly appeared on the queen's list of potential husbands. The various clans were all speculating about this person's origins, but they were never able to find out. But right now, the truth is crystal clear. The fourth name is that of the stranger before us, the lizard man who was personally received by the queen. However, the queen's husband has never been chosen from outside the tribe. Why is there an outsider this time? Descend the 1,000 stone steps. The grand procession began its return to the palace. Dimitrika wanted to say goodbye to the queen and return to her residence. But the queen, who was sitting on the back of the Triceratops, smiled and said, "I have prepared a luncheon. It's not too late to go back after it's over. The guards of your city are all heroes, and Fang Hao will not be in any danger." Without waiting for Dimitrika's reply, the Triceratops stood up. It moved its enormous body toward the palace. Meanwhile, a lizard man attendant strode over, leading a four-legged giant lizard. "Mr. Dimitrika, please take a seat." There is a nicely decorated chair on the back of the giant lizard. Dimitrika could only board the giant lizard, sit down, and follow the procession towards the palace. Lizardman's capital city is very prosperous. The buildings are mostly made of earth and yellow stone bricks. The buildings are the main feature, and ancient saint images and symbols can be seen everywhere on the streets. Along the way, Lizardman residents knelt and bowed, chanting Her Majesty the Queen. Unlike other major cities, the only major city here is Lizardman. There were no foreigners in sight, not even traveling merchants who were scattered all over the world. The reason is simple. Other races simply cannot enter this place. Swamp, primeval forest. This has created what is now a forbidden zone for life, enveloped by nature. They traveled to the kingdom. The queen held a grand banquet. Officials and generals who remained in the capital were invited to the banquet. A variety of food and drinks to suit Lizardman's taste were laid out on the long, narrow table. The officials were somewhat bewildered. I had a feeling that the queen was showing off something by putting food that you can't get outside, but that suits the Lizardman's taste at the luncheon. The luncheon ended quickly. Amidst the hushed conversation, Lizardman, clad in red armor, suddenly stood up. He first bowed to the queen, then looked at Dimitrika beside him and said, "Mr. Dimitrika, I challenge you." The challenge was launched without any opening remarks. The noisy venue instantly fell silent. Everyone looked at the Lizardman general, who was wearing blood-red armor. Red General, Leo Tuzan, a fourth-order orange hero. He was also one of the 4 candidates for the queen's husband in the Holy Dynasty. He is a highly capable and powerful lizard man within the clan. He is also of the same clan as the queen. He himself was highly valued by the queen, and before this, he was even kept by her side as the commander of the guards. If Dimitrika does not appear, then Leo Tuzan is the most likely candidate for the position of queen's husband. The entire room fell silent. All eyes shifted from Leo Tuzan to the queen at the head of the table. Seeing that he remained silent and watched the show with an air of detached amusement, she turned her gaze to Dimitrika. "What reason?" Dimitrika put down his cutlery and looked at Leo Tuzan, who was staring directly at him. "Leo Tuzan, I didn't expect you to ask that. Do I need a reason?" "You can't exactly say it's about vying for the right to mate with the queen." After thinking for a moment, he said, "It's just a simple contest, a little exercise after dinner. Don't you know that strenuous exercise right after eating can easily cause stomach prolapse?" Dimitrika continued, "Huh? What?" Leo Tuzan was taken aback. Where did these terms like gastric prolapse come from? Then Leo Tuzan continued, "So you're afraid?" As he spoke, he glanced to the side without leaving a trace. Dimitrika thought for a moment and finally said, "All right, let's have a friendly spar, but we'll stop when we've reached our limit." Goodness, all the lizard men were stunned. Compared to the straightforward Leo Tuzan, Dimitrika speaks in a much more cultured way. The language is simple, and the meaning is still understandable. Asterisk smack. Smack. Asterisk. The queen, standing to the side, clapped her hands, interrupting their conversation. He said to the person beside him, "Prepare the arena." Yes. The servant withdrew. The queen got involved too. This fight looks like it's going to be quite something. The group waited in the banquet hall for a while longer. After the servant came to report that everything was ready, the group rose and followed the queen out of the palace, heading towards the arena of the saints. The competition platform was established early on and has been used ever since. From the outside, it appears to be a huge circular building. Provide a place for the lizard man to fight. The 2 sides in the contest were not merely slaves providing performances for the nobles. It is not a place for competition and struggle. Every year, Warriors who leave this place are recruited by the army and the temple. It can be considered a method for selecting talent. Dimitrika was brought into the central area. On the platform directly above were the queen and several ministers. There were also residents and city dignitaries who came to watch. The scene inside was bustling with excitement. In the afternoon, the sunlight was a bit too bright. Dimitrika calmly looked at Liu Tuzan opposite him. The contest you speak of is just a performance for the rest of us? The armor reflected the blazing sun overhead, casting blurry silhouettes. A performance? No. The people here will cheer for the winner. It's the fastest way to acknowledge the strong and brave. Liu Tuzan finished speaking and raised his hands, looking around. Liu Tuzan, Liu Tuzan, Liu Tuzan. Shouts erupted from the stands as everyone, the lizard man, cheered for Liu Tuzan. Liu Tuzan enjoyed high prestige among both commoners and nobles. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a unified slogan, with everyone chanting his name. The people above were gesturing downwards. They were asked if they were ready. The two nodded slightly and bowed to the queen on the stage. Thump! The ringing of the bell signifies the start of the battle. The two of them each drew their own weapon. Liu Tuzan is a mighty sword, while Dimitrika remains the same longsword. After seeing that the other party was ready, Liu Tuzan, sword in hand, strode quickly toward Dimitrika, his footsteps echoing across the hard ground. Their pace quickened, gradually turning into a jog. The blood-red combat boots left deep footprints in the ground. The jog quickened to a charge. Almost simultaneously, Dimitrika also stopped staying in one place. With a push of his feet, his body shot forward, launching a counterattack against Liu Tuzan. Both are melee orange heroes, and their physical abilities have surpassed those of ordinary warriors. In the blink of an eye, the gold and red objects collided. The moment they made contact, they launched an attack. Liu Tuzan lowered his body, and his sword sweep slashed out, cutting him in half at the waist. The whooshing sound of something cutting through the air kicked up a cloud of dust. Dimitrika, longsword held horizontally to block, clang. A metallic sound rang out at the same time. The sword tip swung upwards, aiming straight for the gap between the helmet and armor at the throat. Liu Tuzan suddenly tilted his head back, the tip of his sword slicing along the edge of his helmet. A harsh, screeching sound rang out. Dimitrika pressed forward, launching a powerful attack with his longsword. Sword beams flashed, slashing and thrusting at sweep, one sword after another. The sword tip pierced through the helmet's eye and the gaps in the armor, swift and ruthless. Liu Tuzan also possesses strong combat skills. The red-scaled lizard is often more adept at close combat than the blue lizard. His sword flashed out swiftly, and he parried every single blow without missing a single one. With sweeping, powerful strikes, the sword aimed for the opponent's vitals. The two engaged in a fierce battle in an instant. Swords clashed, dust billowed. The audience in the stands were somewhat bewildered. I originally thought it would be a very exciting battle. However, at the scene, the situation was completely unclear. The movements and techniques were unclear. All that could be seen were countless sword beams and blade shadows surrounding the two, with rolling waves of energy and billowing dust. Can anyone see it clearly? Tell us about it. Liu Tuzan uses a knife, while the one in golden armor uses a longsword. Then what? They've started fighting. Dimitrika seized the opportunity. As the sword slashed down, he kicked him in the chest, and then retreated. Liu Tuzan was kicked. His body flew backward, lost his balance, and slid backward. Dimitrika pointed a finger and released the heretical mark. The next second, he flashed directly in front of the reclining red-armored man and slashed down with his longsword. Liu Tuzan's pupil changes. With a furious roar, a violent aura spread outwards. The heat wave distorted the air, and Dimitrika's figure was also thrown backwards. Having missed the opportunity, Dimitrika was no longer in a hurry to attack. The two stood on opposite sides, wary of each other. Dimitrika breathed slightly. Meanwhile, Liu Tuzan stared at the person opposite him with his cold, vertical pupils, his bright red tongue darting out from his thin lips to lick away the bloodstains left behind. The entire room fell silent. No one shouted Liu Tuzan anymore. Instead, they looked at the two players on the field with a serious expression. Although the two moved too fast, their moves were too fast to see clearly. However, the situation on site was still clear at a glance. Clearly, the stranger in the golden armor had the upper hand. Liu Tuzan appears to be injured. The battle continues. The two moved their feet carefully, turning around as they gradually shortened the distance between them. They both took a deep breath at the same time. The chest cavity began to bulge forward, and two streams of energy, one blue and one red, surged upward between their respective necks. The next second, blue mist was exhaled from Dimitrika's mouth, quickly spreading throughout the entire area. Almost simultaneously, Liu Tuzan spewed out a large mouthful of flames, covering the area in front of him. One blue and one red, clearly separated. However, the red flames clearly did not last very long. When it stops, the blue mist will cover the entire area. Liu Tuzan realized something was wrong. The fog was gradually weakening his senses. They couldn't even tell which way was which. The next instant, a figure rushed over. His movements were so agile, unlike those of a lizard man. Liu Tuzan narrowed his eyes, a strong sense of crisis rising within him. Seizing the opportunity, he unleashed a series of strikes, his sword imbued with flames. But every strike landed within the mist. Not only did the opponent evade the attack, but even after the wind from the blades cleared the mist, no trace of the enemy could be seen. Before he could make any further move, a figure suddenly darted out from the clouds on one side. Like a golden leopard, it leaps up. Bang! A dull thud. The knee, encased in iron armor, struck Liu Tuzan directly in the face. The heavy weight caused the helmet to make a strained, deforming sound. Liu Tuzan tilted his head back and staggered backward. Knowing things were going badly, he quickly tensed his muscles, steadied himself, and prepared to counterattack. In that instant of error, the cold tip of the sword was already pressed against a gap in his armor, against the scales on his neck. Clang! The battle sword lay on the ground, and Liu Tuzan seemed somewhat lost in thought. He really lost, falling behind in both weapon combat and environmental battles. I lost, Liu Tuzan said in a deep voice. Dimitrika sheathed his longsword, picked up his opponent's sword, and handed it to him, saying, "Just a friendly spar." You. Liu Tuzan held the weapon, unsure of what to say. The clouds and mists soon dissipated. Two people, one in red and one in gold, stood still. However, their weapons had already been sheathed, and they had no intention of continuing the fight. The audience in the stands are still completely bewildered, from the beginning until now. What happened? It's over. Who won? Yes, so who really won? It should be Liu Tuzan who wins. It's possible he was wearing the golden armor, which gave him the advantage from the start. You can still see the advantages? I didn't understand it at all. The entire audience was discussing and speculating about who would win or lose. The giant golden gong at the top was struck, announcing, a draw. Holy crap, a draw? There's a draw. It's just that neither side can really defeat the other. That makes sense. It's not a life or death battle, so a draw is normal. Who is this guy who can draw with Liu Tuzan? He's so strong. Yeah, that's incredible. They tied with Liu Tuzan. The highest stands. The Lizardman officials all looked surprised. Among them are many high-level Lizardman heroes, so it's clear that Liu Tuzan has already suffered some injuries. It's actually quite obvious who is stronger and who is weaker. This son of the ancient saint is very powerful and has a very pure bloodline. To be able to slightly defeat Liu Tuzan is truly extraordinary. I wonder which clan they belong to. It would be great if they joined the Holy Dynasty. He overheard the discussions among the ministers behind him. The queen smiled with satisfaction. While others couldn't see what was happening inside the mist, she, a 9th-rank dark gold, could naturally see it clearly. Dimitrika truly surprised her. At the same time, this competition also brought Dimitrika into the view of officials and the public. All right, let's go back to the palace. Yes, after dinner, Fang Hao was browsing the World Channel in Hot Springs, acquiring Blueprint, a one-handed sword. Interested parties, please send a private message. Beef curry and hand-pulled roti for sale at reasonable prices. Buy now. Selling Blueprint chainmail in exchange for weapon of the same quality Blueprint. Cooked curry. Whoever buys it will die from the shock. Don't ask me how I know. Selling Blooming Everywhere skill scroll in exchange for warrior skill book or 20 blue weapons/weapons. Weapon. Upon reaching this point, Fang Hao stopped scrolling through the messages. Flowers blooming everywhere. Wood-based magic? This kind of magic is still quite rare. Blossom everywhere. Category, air-based skill scroll. Holy crap, air magic. Why did they choose such a misleading name? Blossom everywhere. Category, air magic. Level, 3 magic. Effect, fires a lightning attribute orb in a fixed direction, dealing lightning damage. Difficult to control. Description, Let's have a white fireworks display, dangerous and dazzling. In Fang Hao's understanding, lightning magic is a type of air magic. This skill that is blooming everywhere actually releases lightning magic. As for what other types of air systems there are, he doesn't know much about them at the moment. After all, they hadn't had any detailed instruction in magic. Li Rong, the only one who had received further training, was sent to the front lines after only 2 days and hasn't returned yet. This skill scroll for sale is exactly what I need. Open the private message and send it. Can you give me a discount? There was a brief silence on the other end before a message came back. No, and you'll have to bid, because someone else is also buying from me, and if they offer less, it will be sold to someone else. Kindness. Is anyone else also looking to buy skill tickets? Is he also a lightning mage? It's also possible that he saw his own name and, like everyone else, decided to sell it for a high price. After all, there's only one item, and we don't expect any second opportunity for cooperation. If you can get one more piece of equipment, then get one more. Fang Hao replied. Since someone contacted you first, sell it to them. There was silence on the other end again. Then he replied, name your price. I'd like to hear it. Sure enough, either the other person offered a lower price, or no one else contacted him at all. Fang Hao thought for a moment. 10 blues weapon. No, not enough. Tell me what you think, and I'll see if it works. Fang Hao replied. 20 skill scrolls. Once you learn them, the skill will be permanently active. Moreover, they are lightning magic, which deals high damage and is very powerful. You've made a profit with 20 of them. Then I don't want it. Tell me, what's the maximum you can give? 15 items. 19 items. Just 15 rounds. Blue. Weapons hold their value in the market. They're worth much more than your scroll. Fang Hao insisted on 15. He wasn't being picky about these transmigrators. Rather, currently, blue equipment is indeed a type of equipment that retains its value. On the World Channel, there are more transmigrators, and equipment is being equipped for the army. It's still limited to white and green equipment. Blue's equipment is snapped up very quickly once it appears. Therefore, blue weapon is more marketable than this mage skill scroll. Of course, skill scrolls are also good. However, in transmigrators, there are very few people who follow the mage path, especially those who use lightning magic. There was a long silence on the other end before they finally replied. Okay, they're all transmigrators. I'll give you a discount. I'll make sure it's a deal. We're just having a normal transaction. Why are you making it sound like you're the one who's losing out? Fang Hao immediately received the designated transaction. The other party had already listed the blooming everywhere skill scroll. On my side, I selected 15 blue shards that had been replaced by skeleton soldiers. Weapon. The transaction was conducted directly. The next second, the skill scroll appeared in his hand. Skill scrolls are different from books. The books I bought before, such as Multi-Headed Fire Python, required reading and following the methods described to learn how to condense magic. Skill scrolls, on the other hand, are skills specific to transmigrators. Just like in a game, once you confirm, you can start learning. Of course, this only applies if you are a mage. Warriors won't work. Whether or not to learn a skill, opportunities abound. Study. The scroll transformed into a beam of light and entered the body. At the same time, the spell's casting rules and steps also appeared in Fang Hao's mind. Having learned a new skill, I wanted to give it a try. We can't try it here. Magic doesn't offer any immunity to friendly fire, so it wouldn't be good if Air and the others got hurt. After thinking it over, I stood up. Air, her pretty face, turned red. Seeing Fang Hao walk towards the door, he asked, Is Master going out? I've acquired a new skill. I'll go try it out outside. Fang Hao stepped out of the hot spring pool and shook off the water. Xiaobai also got up, took out a towel, and helped Fang Hao dry off the water droplets. After drying off the water droplets, I simply put on a piece of clothing and went outside. I just walked out of Lord's Manor. Then Dimitrika, clad in golden armor, happened to pass by Lord's Manor. She was also carrying a small backpack on her back, so it seems she brought back some local specialties from the Lizard Man. Lord, Dimitrika bowed. You're back. How was your day? Is there anything different over there compared to us? Fang Hao asked with a smile. Dimitrika was invited to the Lizard Man territory, and Fang Hao could guess what the Lizard Folk Queen meant. This isn't the first or second time they've tried to poach employees. He's not afraid of 100 points of loyalty. The Queen is very welcoming. The city isn't much different from the human world, except for the environment, Dimitrika replied. Yes, if I have the chance, I'll also visit the Holy Dynasty. Dimitrika, seeing Fang Hao carrying the Thunder Eagle blade and walking out, asked curiously, "Sir, are you going out?" Thunder Eagle Blade, as a weapon of Fang Hao's air magic, is only used during battles. Right now, the territory is quiet, and there's no sign of anyone attacking. Why are you carrying a weapon? Fang Hao glanced at the great sword in his hand. Oh, I just acquired an air-based skill, and I'm planning to find a place to test it out. Then I'll go with you, sir. Okay, let's go to firing range. The two of them went one after the other to the firing range. The firing range used to be a place for testing guns. The area is very large, and the warehouse also stores many wooden targets. But now, this place has become where Fang Hao tests his skills and tries out strange and unusual things. All gun tests were conducted in Gray Iron City. With demon teleportation, distance is no longer an issue. He summoned 2 skeletons and ordered them to replace some new wooden targets. The dull-looking skeleton stepped forward and replaced the old wooden target with a new one. Fang Hao seized the opportunity and rallied his forces. Release bloom everywhere. Since the characteristics of skill were not yet clear, I deliberately threw it a little further away for safety reasons. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning, the size of a basketball, was thrown out by Fang Hao. The speed wasn't fast. It took 4 or 5 seconds to hit the wooden target in the center of the firing range. Bang! The wooden target shattered in the lightning, and the next second, the basketball-sized lightning ball instantly dispersed into countless smaller lightning balls, billiard balls, spreading outwards. The ball of lightning, about the size of a billiard ball, shattered again after flying about a meter, transforming into lightning snakes that then spread out once more, like a celestial maiden scattering flowers. Oh, this, Fang Hao, who had little experience, was surprised. Blooming everywhere. That's a really fitting name. This skill is a 3-stage chain skill. Large lightning balls spread into smaller lightning balls, and the smaller ones spread again into electric snakes that continue to spread. When used well, this skill is a very good area of effect damage skill. However, it's important to be careful with the degree of spread, as it's clear that the way this skill spreads is not easy to control. If in a small space, or in a place with many teammates, this skill could potentially kill both yourself and your enemy. His gaze returned to the wooden target in front of him. The first wooden target to be attacked was shattered by the lightning ball, and the wooden targets on both sides, each over a meter long, were also destroyed. The small, dispersed lightning balls struck the city, shattering it into fragments. The damage effect is quite good, and the most distinctive feature of lightning magic is the electric shock effect when it hits. Even if it doesn't kill you, it will electrocute you and paralyze your entire body. Go and change the wooden target. The skeleton then retrieved new wooden targets and replaced the 3 that were damaged. Wait until the replacement is complete. Fang Hao unleashed bloom everywhere again, sending out lightning balls. It still hit the wooden target, then spread into a small lightning ball, which then spread into a lightning snake and disappeared. I did a rough calculation, and the first split, with the center as the radius, can spread to a distance of about 1 meter. The razor can spread out to a distance of half a meter, about the size of a billiard ball. The range is acceptable. Fang Hao then experimented by smashing the lightning ball directly onto the ground. The basketball-sized ball of lightning didn't undergo a second stage of expansion. Instead, it transformed directly into countless lightning snakes covering an area of over 3 meters. Then, the lightning ball was thrown into the water. The lightning ball disappeared, but the electric snakes continued to spread, covering a much larger area than when they hit the ground. After trying it out for a while, I felt that I was familiar with the method and effect of the skill. Then he led Dimitrika back. I'm fairly satisfied with this skill. I used it 15 times in the blue. It was a good deal to exchange for weapons. I returned to Lord's Manor and chatted with Dimitrika for a while in the hall. I saw the lizard man's specialties he brought back. Then she went upstairs and went to sleep with air in her arms. The night was deep. The air was thick with a stuffy, humid atmosphere. As if a fog had fallen, the surrounding night became even more hazy and silent. Da-da-da. The sound of horses' hooves and wheels rolling over stones broke the silence of the night. A carriage bearing the name Nightstone sped along the dimly lit road. The road was rugged, and the carriage jolted violently. Inside the carriage, a brown-haired man looked at the Lord's book and kept urging the soldier to speed up. Nighttime in the wilderness is dangerous. If this matter hadn't been so important, he wouldn't have left the city under the cover of night. How much longer? The brown-haired man asked, tapping lightly on the car wall. Sir, we can already see the buildings ahead, said the guards, who was acting as the coachman. The man was delighted and drew back the curtains to look ahead. Ahead in the mist, faint lights could be seen inside the buildings. A moment later, the carriage approached the city limits. 5 false dragon guards. I began to circle the carriage in the air. At that moment, a guard riding a pterodactyl also flew over the carriage. He was dressed in silver armor and held a long spear. Stop the carriage and state your purpose, guards on the pterosaur asked coldly. The carriage slowed down. The brown-haired man leaned out of the carriage, forced a smile, and explained, I am a member of Lord Aragon's alliance, and I have something important to report to him. Guards glanced at the carriage. There were only 2 people, including the driver, so there couldn't be any danger. He then said, wait near city wall. I'll go and inform them. Well, the pterosaur riders took to the air again, soaring over the city wall and flying into the city. Before long, the city gates opened. The brown-haired man was welcomed into the city. Inside Lord's manor, the blonde and handsome Aragon sat yawning on a chair to the side. It was obvious that he was woken up from his sleep. Aragon glanced at the person who came in and said, what's the matter that you had to come over in the middle of the night? The man didn't even bother to sit down before immediately saying, Alliance leader, the chi-based scroll you gave me last time has already been sold. Sold out. Aragon frowned. Yes, Chinese, male, lightning mage, wealthy, uses 15 blue weapons. The weapon perfectly meets your requirements, the man reported. Oh, who is this person? Have you been in contact with him? This person? Well, he's a bit special. The man hesitated for a moment before continuing. The one who bought the scroll is Fang Hao, who's ranked number 1. I'm not sure if he's the person you're looking for. Aragon's eyes widened, and he instantly snapped back to reality. Fang Hao, how did you manage to catch fish that ended up over there? After the investigation with Lizard Man failed last time, the search for Fu Lei went cold. All the intelligence could not be pieced together. Vadi provided the name Fu Lei and was affiliated with the Lizard Man camp. The dragons then went to the Lizard Man forces in the south and north, respectively. Neither side has this transmigrators, especially in the northern Lizard Man. The transmigrators are not Asian, and there could not possibly be someone like Fu Lei. After several days of being completely clueless, Aragon mentioned a plan to the dragons. The other party is Chinese and is skilled in using lightning magic. He then acquired a lightning-type skill scroll and put it up for sale in the channel. Actually, this scroll went on sale 2 days ago, and there were quite a few people interested in buying it. But they were just screening people. Those who intended to buy were all turned down with various excuses. Today, I finally set my sights on Fang Hao. Except for the name, all other conditions have been met. Among the Chinese, the Thunder faction, and those who have heard of the existence of Undead. Looking at it this way, the direction becomes very clear. Aragon frowned and pondered for a moment before continuing. He said whether it was for his own use or a gift, he didn't say. After the transaction was completed, I tried to contact him, but he didn't reply. It seems he's not very willing to communicate with other people, the man replied. Once the transaction is completed, both parties will automatically become friends. For a period of time, private messages will not be blocked. After the transaction, the man tried to contact Fang Hao to learn more, but Fang Hao didn't seem to care. He had already used up all his public chat attempts, but still hadn't received a reply. This feels like a big deal, another opportunity to make a contribution. In the middle of the night, I came to Aragon. Aragon pondered for a while, going over everything again from the beginning. Then he said, stay here for now, and I'll take you to see the Dragon Clan tomorrow. Oh well. The next day, early morning, inside the spacious hall, Aragon and the brown-haired man sat on a chair to the side. Opposite them sat the silver-haired dragon girl, Bait. After Aragon recounted the events, he said, Miss Bait, now we just need to confirm whether Fang Hao's appearance matches the person we met to confirm his identity. Bait nodded, satisfied with Aragon's method. Everyone hopes that their subordinate is a smart person. Bait asked, how can we confirm their appearance? We can look for clues from other transmigrators. Other transmigrators? Bait frowned and took a large gulp of wine. She belongs to the younger generation of dragons and is more receptive to new things. She also knew a fair amount about transmigrators. Aragon was someone she helped to establish, and now he plays a significant role in the development of the dragon race. Upon hearing Aragon's words, Bait let out a soft burp. Curious, he asked, how do you find clues from other people's territory? You don't even know the location of the number 1 territory. Aragon continued, it doesn't matter if the location is uncertain. As long as someone has seen Fang Hao, we will definitely be able to find a breakthrough. It's even easier to find a breakthrough among transmigrators. Oh, you mean, bribe Fang Hao's men to confirm if they're the person we're looking for? Bait seemed to understand. Yes, Fang Hao must also have his own Transmigrators Alliance. Some of the members must have seen Fang Hao in person. As long as we find a breakthrough, confirming his appearance shouldn't be difficult. We might even be able to find his photo. Then we'll know for sure if he's the Fu Lei, Arrogant said. Transmigrators are never just one iron plate. It's not uncommon for people to betray their comrades and alliances in order to improve their own survival. Fang Hao's alliance must have a considerable number of members. That way, it will be easier to find a breakthrough. Once you confirm the other person's appearance, you can confirm whether they are the person the dragons are looking for. Arrogant even more hoped that Fang Hao was the Fu Lei. If the dragons destroy Fang Hao, kill him, or conquer his city, so, naturally, he would be number one in the world. At that time, the population will be more concentrated in their own territory. To make their territory develop better and faster, she even plotted in her heart that even if Fang Hao wasn't that person, she would make him be. We must make the dragons direct their attacks at Fang Hao. Bait nodded, feeling that this was a good idea, and said, "Okay, you can investigate this matter. Just tell me whatever information you have." He took another big gulp of wine and said, "Don't go looking for trouble with that guy. You're no match for him." Arrogant nodded. "Understood, Miss Bait." Then, he glanced at the wine in Baiate's hand, feeling that this was an opportunity to improve his favorability. He asked softly, "Miss Bait really likes wine? I know a bit about winemaking. If you'd like, I can make some for you to try and see if it suits your taste." Baiate's eyes lit up. "You can brew wine? I know some." "Okay, get some out. Make them strong," Bait said. She was becoming increasingly satisfied with the human she had raised. Whether you say it or not, you can always find something she likes. Arrogant smiled and said, "Okay, I'll send it to you to taste once it's brewed." Bait nodded. "All right, you can go back now. Hurry up with the investigation. The Dragon Clan is also counting its members in various places to confirm who that kid killed. I'll take my leave now, Miss Bait." Arrogant rose and bowed. "Okay, go ahead. Time flies like water, and years pass like a shuttle. The days when you can't show off will pass in a flash." Several days have passed in the blink of an eye. In the past few days, Huangling City has not responded to the negotiations, and Fang Hao is willing to continue dragging things out. Between the two cities, messages were constantly being passed between them. They blamed each other and engaged in a war of words. Lizard Folk Queen ordered some armor from Fang Hao and invited Dimitrika to visit. Fang Hao felt that the queen was being a little too obvious. It's not appropriate to invite people over every few days. Despite inwardly complaining, he didn't stop Dimitrika from contacting the lizard man. He usually allowed Dimitrika to go there when he didn't have plans to leave the city. Ultimately, whether Dimitrika and the queen can end up together depends on fate. The war in Otis' great necropolis continues. The army advanced into the central area of Necropolis with unstoppable momentum. According to the message Dong Jieyue sent back, from the start of a march, the army basically uses bone dragons and airships to clear the way. When the army arrived, the scene had already been reduced to ruins. These transmigrators also need to direct the skeletons to dig out the treasure chests from the ruins. Then they went to catch up with the advancing group. The entire offensive resembled a forced march. The road was dusty. This day, the morning sun was still shining brightly. After having breakfast, Fang Hao lay in his rocking chair, took out the papers he had just exchanged, and looked at the latest novel content on them. The other party updates quite quickly, 5 pages of content a day. That's really efficient. After reading it himself, he handed it to Air. After Air finished reading it, Xiaobai took it and read it to Njia. The whole family was engrossed in the novel. Enjoy the tranquility under the oak tree. After reading the last page, he handed the paper to Air, exchanged 2 greens for the author weapon as a sign of encouragement. At the same time, it implies to the other party that they should update the story more. Bite. Suddenly, a private message notification sounded. Upon opening it, I found it was a message from Dong Jieyue. "Brother Hao, the army has arrived at the Undead Blackhorn City. Queen Amanda has ordered the army to begin final preparations." Fang Hao frowned slightly. It's been almost half a month since the battle began, but it's still somewhat surprising that the army advanced directly to the Undead capital at this speed. "So fast," Fang Hao replied. Dong Jieyue quickly replied, "Oh, don't even mention it. The entire army has been working nonstop since the start of the war. Transmigrators have been eating and sleeping in carriages, and several of them have even gotten carsick. Forehead. No wonder, at the very beginning of the pre-battle preparations, Amanda's request for army troop type, all are undead. These transmigrators, which he requested to be placed there, were used for relaying messages, as well as for making items and logistical work. In other words, the undead army was able to march in this way. For any other race, this journey would take at least 2 or 3 months, or even longer. But the effect was significant, giving Otis no time to react at all. They marched straight to the city walls. It seemed the final battle was about to begin. Thank you for your hard work. Is there anything I can do for you? Fang Hao continued to ask. Dong Jieyue replied. We need a lot of cannon shells here. Also, Queen Amanda asked you what we should be careful about after the city falls. What should I pay attention to? There's nothing I particularly noticed. After thinking for a moment, he said, if there's a database or something, be careful not to damage it. If not, then let Amanda handle it herself. I don't have any requirements. Okay, I understand. After hanging up the chat, Fang Hao got up and walked outside. Air and the other two were still engrossed in their novels and didn't even glance at him. After leaving Lord's Manor, we headed to the open space in the warehouse area. Start making cannonballs, because I felt this thing was rather dangerous. Fang Hao produced 50,500 cannon shells and 50,500 organ cannonballs in batches. I didn't dare let them stay in the city for too long. After coming out, he immediately made the transaction with Dong Jieyue. These shells were enough to reduce Blackhorn City to ruins. However, Amanda intends to rebuild the Kingdom of Anglienal, so she probably won't bomb it in a destructive way. If the main city is indeed reduced to ruins, rebuilding it will be a rather difficult task. That will depend on Amanda's own decision at that time. Otis' Great Necropolis has been turned into a hell by Otis. It can't get any worse. After all the transactions were completed, Fang Hao also made some detonator, siege ladder, and other similar items. After all, having hundredfold amplification makes the process much faster. Reduce the burden on the transmigrators. He gave Dong Jieyue a few more instructions on safety, such as not letting transmigrators get too close to the front lines before hanging up the chat. Otis' Great Necropolis. Outside Blackhorn City, the skeleton army was arranged in neat square formations. It stretches as far as the eye can see. The black and red bat wings battle flag fluttered in the wind. In the gaps between the ranks, spirit-binding guards moved swiftly through the army. With the red paint in my hand, leave a red mark on each of your own troop types to make it easier to distinguish between undead of different factions. In the center of the skeletal army's left and right formations, the skeleton blacksmith, standing on the ribs of the bone dragon, checks whether the dragon armor is secure. Behind them, the airship lowered a rope ladder, and the skeleton soldiers carried ammunition boxes and sent the ammunition into the airship's cabin. The central area of the military formation. The transmigrators finally had the chance to get off the carriage. They were moving their legs and feet, like patients undergoing rehabilitation training. With my old arms and legs, it's not like I'm fighting a war. It feels more like I'm on a group tour. I sleep on the bus and pee when I get off. It would have been better if we hadn't gotten off the bus. We were assigned to clean up the ruins, move stones, and dig up equipment. We were exhausted. You're kidding me. Countless people are eager to get off the bus and start working, and there's no one in line. I envy those who can get off the bus. I feel like I'm going to have a stroke. Dong Jieyue, holding the papers in her hand, waited until everyone had finished their activities. He said, all right, this is the final battle. After it's over, we can all take our rewards and go home. Everyone chuckled. The past 2 weeks were finally almost over. I'm really looking forward to the rewards after the big battle. Last time, the transmigrators who assisted in the attack on Grey Iron City not only received the cannon reward, but each of them also received it. They also gained command of a number of skeleton soldiers. This thing doesn't eat or drink, and it doesn't get tired while working. It's practically the perfect troop type. There's also Bone Dragon. Of all the cars I've driven, Bone Dragon is definitely the most impressive. If someone could be rewarded with a Bone Dragon, they would definitely be among the top players in the region. When Dong Jieyue spoke, the others also quieted down. Stand aside and wait for the task to be assigned. Dong Jieyue continued. Shaoxing, you take 10 men to build defensive walls and watchtowers according to the blueprint. Time is of the essence, so don't slack off. Shaoxing nodded. Okay, Sister Jieyue. After taking the blueprint, I selected 5 people I knew. You 5, build the houses according to the plan. The rest of you, make various siege weapons according to the requirements on the item list. Hurry up and don't slow down the army's progress. Yes, Sister Jaehyua. Everyone sprang into action and began their work according to the plan. Their work is not technical. They simply use the capabilities of transmigrators to create the products. I just finished assigning the task. A spirit-binding guard rushed over and said, Commander Dong Jaehyua, the Queen requests your presence. Okay. Dong Jaehyua mounted his horse and headed towards the area where Amanda was, in the queue. Inside a long, narrow carriage, Lorena lay in a black and red velvet corpse-nurturing coffin. Long, straight legs clad in black stockings were crossed and rested on the edge of the coffin. Holding a communicating conch shell in his hand, he muttered with some complaint. Don't even mention it. We didn't fight a single battle along the way. We were just traveling all the time. Otis, the army's poor performance also exceeded Lorena's expectations. I originally thought there would be several battles. Looking at it now, it's nothing at all. It was a smooth ride all the way here. She slept the whole way. Soon, a woman's gentle voice came through the communicating conch shell. The final battle is about to begin, so be careful. This is no joke. Hearing this voice, Lorena's expression relaxed a lot, and she smiled. Don't worry. I'm so powerful, there won't be any danger. Even Otis can't beat me if it really comes down to it. That won't work either. With so many troops, there's no need for you to go on the field. The voice on the other end became serious. Lorena's smile grew even brighter. It felt so good to have someone care and think about her. She suppressed her smile and said, I know, you're the one who cares about me the most. The day before yesterday, Fang Hao came over and mentioned you. He seemed to care about you a lot. But you know how men are. They're not good at saying these things. Lorena was taken aback. A brief moment of confusion crossed my mind. Why did the topic of Fang Hao come up again? She frowned and asked curiously, What's wrong with you? Lately, all you can talk about is Fang Hao. Did he bribe you to put in a good word for him? Let me tell you, men only know how to use you. None of them are good. The other person continued, Fang Hao is all right. He's been good to us. If it weren't for him, I would have had to give up my position as city lord. Lorena emphasized again, Don't be fooled by his appearance. Isn't he just trying to expand his territory? It's not like he's doing this solely for you. Remember, no man is a good man. Say it to me again. No man is a good man. You say that, but you don't seem to dislike him at all. Lorena's expression changed, and she was about to retort. A soft knocking sound came from the carriage door. Immediately afterwards, a voice rang out. Lady Lorena, Queen Amanda requests that you grant an audience with the envoy. Lorena frowned. Messenger? What kind of messenger? He sat up abruptly and asked, What messenger? The reply came from outside the carriage. Blackhorn City has sent an envoy to negotiate. Queen Amanda's intention is for you, as a vampire, to receive this envoy. To receive the other party as a vampire? When two opposing forces go to war, they usually arrange for envoys to negotiate. But now that the enemy is at the gates, and we're just one step away from victory, what is there left to negotiate? Can't we just finish by fighting? After putting on a coat, Lorena continued. Has Amanda disappeared on her own? This attack on Otis was also carried out in the name of the vampires. Essentially, it was Amanda's war to restore her kingdom, and it had little to do with Lorena herself. She didn't pay attention to anything along the way and slept until now. Now that she's being asked to meet the other person, I don't know what to do. Outside the carriage, he continued. Queen Amanda said that you are in charge. Okay, I understand. Lorena nodded. I opened the car door and saw a spirit-binding guard waiting outside. He glanced around at the endless white bones of the army. Unfold your bat wings and fly towards the central area. You can meet the messenger there, but first ask Amanda what she means. I don't want to ruin any plans myself. Before long, Lorena spread her wings and flew in another direction. A stone building has been erected over there as a temporary reception area. As I landed next to the buildings, I saw Dong Jaehyua already waiting there. Lorena asked, Then what kind of messenger? Dong Jaehyua said, We haven't arrived yet, but we should be here soon. Let's go inside and wait. The two entered the house. The interior layout is relatively simple. A long table and a few chairs. A nightstone hangs from above. The entire room served as a temporary meeting place for discussing combat strategies. It can be used for 2 or 3 days, and it will be basically useless after the war ends, so there is no need to decorate it. The two sat down on the chairs. Soon after, footsteps could be heard outside the door. Immediately following was the spirit-binding guard's announcement. Sir, the envoy from Blackhorn City has arrived. Let him in. The door opened. 2 figures, one short and one tall, walked in. Both of them are undead skeletons. The one in front was short, with a skull that protruded at the top and narrowed at the bottom, revealing the goblin's physical characteristics. She wore a black dress with red embroidery, and her neck and finger bones were adorned with a gold necklace and rings. Another undead followed behind. Judging from its bone structure and height, it was a human-turned-undead skeleton. Judging from the positions of the two undead, it is dominated by short, undead spirits, accompanied by human spirits. The two Lorana women sized them up, and the two undead were also observing each other. To his utter surprise, he was greeted not by Red Duke, the vampire leader, but by two women. So young, the two exchanged glances. The short undead was the first to bow and said, "Greetings, ladies. I am Grover, an official sent by King Otis. I wonder if I could meet Lord Red Duke? We are old friends." It's clear that the goblin undead are very good at building relationships. The behavior was both polite and made references to the relationship between them. In regional power relations, humans and dwarves are strategic allies, while the undead and vampires are even closer. However, it has been a long time, and we haven't been in contact for many years. Of course, time is not a problem for the undead and vampires. It will only make the relationship between them sound closer. Dong Jiayue hasn't changed much, and she doesn't know much about Huiwa Highlands. But Lorana, standing to the side, after hearing the words of the dead, his eyes instantly turned icy cold, and a palpable killing intent emanated from his body. A seemingly perfect opening. Suddenly, I felt that the atmosphere in the room was a little different. Even though the two spirits had lost their senses, they still felt a chill that penetrated deep into their souls. The short undead Grover immediately explained, "We mean no harm. We have come in good faith. What's going on? I didn't do anything wrong just now. So why do I feel like the other person is about to kill me?" Lorana looked directly at him and asked, "Are you very familiar with Red Duke?" Grover immediately replied, "Very well. I was in charge of the trade between Necropolis and Huiwa Highlands. I remember the last time we went together, I arranged for the best blacksmith in Blackhorn City to forge a huge silver coffin for him. You could say that I have a close relationship with Red." Puff! A crisp, shattering sound brought Grover to an abrupt halt. The group looked on in confusion and saw a dark red energy spear piercing through the head of the short undead. The soul fire in his pupils extinguished quickly after a struggle. The body, clad in a magnificent brocade robe, instantly crumbled into a pile of skeletons on the ground. "Throw it out," Lorana said coldly. Dong Jiayue glanced around the room, and, finding no one else there, bent down and searched among the scattered bones for a while. They found a small bag of gold coins, a key, a gold necklace, and a gemstone ring. There was also a finely crafted soft nail, belonging to the purple category. Equipment is something that's worn inside an outer garment. However, the soft armor style is too small and only suitable for goblins. They placed all the items they found on the long table, picked up the bones, and threw them out the window. It's like throwing away a pile of garbage. Another human undead, its soul fire trembling violently. Besides shock and fear, there was also confusion. What's going on? Grover was killed as soon as he started to get close to the person. Moreover, he didn't even see where the dark red energy spear appeared before it shattered Grover's skull. "You know Red Duke too?" Lorana's cold gaze fell on him. The human spirit immediately shook its head. "No, I don't know him. I only recently transformed a few years ago." Lorana nodded, crossed her long legs clad in black stockings, leaned back in her chair, and continued. "Otis sent you here to negotiate, right? What do you have to say? Hurry up and say it." The human undead glanced at the open window. "Knowing that you don't want to die, you need to be careful what you say." He was just there to record the events. The real Grover had already been thrown out the window like trash. Now, only he could continue the conversation. King Otis has always maintained a good relationship with the vampires, and hopes that this peaceful and mutually supportive relationship can continue. That's it. The king said that the vampires can state their conditions, and he hopes that everyone can resolve the issue peacefully. The undead continued. Would Otis agree to surrender Blackhorn City and open the gates? Lorana asked directly. The dead remained silent, saying, "These aren't the conditions." He immediately said, "That might be a bit difficult." The king promised that as long as the vampires withdraw their troops and maintain peace on the border, Necropolis is willing to provide 30 million gold coins over 5 years to help the development of Huiwa Highlands. It was said to be to help development, but in reality, it just meant paying reparations and withdrawing troops. But their purpose in attacking Necropolis this time was not to demand reparations. Instead, it was for the restoration of Amanda's kingdom. Therefore, the only possibility for negotiation is that Otis will voluntarily relinquish Blackhorn City. Otherwise, the army will not withdraw. Lorana glanced at the other person, her tone remaining calm. Unless Otis relinquishes his throne, this war will continue. In his haste, the undead immediately added, "Actually, the amount of funding can be discussed further. The undead and vampires have always had a close relationship. How can we let each other weaken each other and give humanity a chance to retaliate? You've seen our forces. You absolutely cannot hold out in this battle. If you don't want to die with Otis, find a way out for yourself. Otherwise, you'll only face real death," Lorana said coldly. The soul fire of the undead trembled once more. When he arrived, he witnessed the terrifying strength of the vampire army. The number of troops is simply too great. It's hard to imagine how many people would have to be killed to gather so many undead. This time, Blackhorn City is probably really in danger. "Could you perhaps allow me to speak with Red Duke?" the human undead tentatively inquired. "Call." After saying this, Lorana's aura surged once more. The murderous intent, like viscous blood, instantly enveloped the spirits of the dead. The skeletons of the dead all trembled. "Shut up immediately and say no more. Get out." Relay Otis's words verbatim, Lorana said coldly. "Oh, okay." The undead hurriedly got up, knocking over the chair behind him. He was afraid that if he was too slow, his skull would be pierced by the other party. He hurriedly gave a bow. He opened the door and walked straight out. "Dong Jeyue, I didn't expect the negotiations to proceed so quickly. The enemy has come in. Kill one first." The other one only said 3 or 4 sentences before the conversation was over. Lorana stood up and casually said, "We're done talking. You can relay this to Amanda and Fang Hao later." "Okay." Dong Jeyue nodded. Lorana opened the door, unfolded bat wings, and flew towards her carriage. Dong Jeyue followed, then mounted her horse, heading to Amanda's location. More than an hour later, the human skeleton finally returned to Blackhorn City amidst terror. Ignoring the questions from the officials beside him, he headed straight for the palace. Inside the royal palace, Otis sits enthroned on the bone throne. Below him, a host of undead officials from Blackhorn City. At this moment, all the eyes of the dead were fixed on the figure in the middle. "I hope it will bring some good news." "Otis," then a cold voice rang out. "Why are you the only one back?" The spirits of the dead, who had just returned, knelt in the center of the main hall. Not daring to be negligent in the slightest, he immediately replied, "Your Majesty, Grover has been killed. They only released me." "Kindness, Grover is dead?" All the dead were startled. Grover was a very shrewd goblin undead. How could he have died during negotiations? Few powers would execute a negotiator, but everyone also realized something in their hearts. It seems that the negotiations did not go as well as expected. As the spirits whispered among themselves, Otis spoke again. "Did Red Duke kill him?" The kneeling undead immediately shook their heads and said, "We didn't see the Red Duke. We saw a female vampire and a transmigrators. Lord Grover said he had a good relationship with the Red Duke, and then he was killed." "What? He was killed after saying just his first words? What's that woman's name? What's her relationship with the Red Duke?" Otis asked again. The spirit shook its head again. "I don't know. That woman had no intention of negotiating at all, nor did she tell me her identity." Otis the soul fire showed a slight fluctuation. After a moment of silence, he continued, "We'll talk about killing Grover later. What did she say about the conditions we offered?" Although I already had a guess in my mind, I still couldn't help but ask, what if there's still a chance? The kneeling spirit, head bowed, spoke. "I told her all the suggestions your Majesty made, but that woman did not accept them. Instead, she said that if she wanted to stop the war, it would be unless what? Unless you surrender and voluntarily relinquish Blackhorn City." Bang! Otis slammed his fist into the armrest of the throne, breaking it in two. He had never felt such rage since becoming an undead, even though he had very little emotion left. "Someone come here." Click, click. 2 skeleton guards walked in. Otis said coldly, "Take him out and destroy his soul." King Otis, it wasn't me who said it. It was that woman who said it, King." The spirits of the dead, kneeling on the ground, loudly retorted, "I was just a messenger, and I don't know why they're taking their anger out on me." Seeing that Otis remained unmoved, none of the officials standing by pleaded for him. He knew in his heart that he was doomed to die. He stopped begging for mercy and roared, That woman has one more thing to say. Let him go first. Otis said. The spirit that had been dragged to the doorway had its arms released. The undead stood up and glanced at the group of people again. What else did the woman say? Otis asked. The undead stared directly at Otis, then looked at everyone present and said, that woman said her army would definitely conquer the city, and she didn't want to die with Otis, so she wanted to find a way out as soon as possible. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, Otis jumped up, like a hunting lion. It traversed the entire hall and pounced on the spirits of the dead at the entrance. Bang! A palm fell. He then smashed the skull of the undead, and the soul fire quickly went out. Otis's cruelty and brutality made all the undead present feel tense. If you say or do something wrong at this time, you will also be blamed by Otis. They have already attained immortality. Are we really going to stay here and die with Otis? The entire room fell silent. Only the sound of Otis's footsteps walking back echoed in the hall. When Otis returned to the throne and sat on the cracked bone throne, he then announced, the entire city shall prepare for battle. From this day forward, any official who attempts to leave Blackhorn City without authorization will have their soul destroyed. All the dead felt a chill run down their spines. Otis aims to bind everyone together. If we're going to die, then we'll all die. Yes, no one dared to have any thoughts, and could only bow and agree. Blackhorn City, Organ Museum. Otis, accompanied by his bodyguards, walked straight into the museum. The funeral priests, busy with their own work, stopped what they were doing and bowed to Otis. Soon, 3 necromancers dressed in long robes and carrying wooden canes came down from the second floor. The leader, dressed in a gray robe with gold patterns, was necromancer Yarlin, who had negotiated with the Federation. King Otis. Several necromancers bowed. Otis nodded and said to the others, you guys go ahead and do your own things. The other 2 necromancers, as well as funeral priest, left some time later. The 2 walked out of the museum and stopped at the entrance. Otis finally spoke, saying, Yarlin, Blackhorn City is besieged by the vampire army. This is our last chance. Do you have any solutions? Yarlin leaned on his wooden cane, his gaze fixed on the city center, on the Queen's golden tower, which had already been cut in half. Yes, the kingdom of Anglianal is gone, and now this city is about to disappear as well. After thinking for a moment, he said softly, are you sure the enemy is a vampire? They have the ability to gather so many undead troop types. After the sudden disappearance of Gold-Eating Queen, Amanda, the former Hunlianer Kingdom has undergone tremendous changes. Otis, the garrison commander, led his troops to overthrow the royal family in the city and placed himself on the throne. He became the new king. The Queen's golden tower was toppled, and her former officials were replaced one by one. Soon after, the kingdom was renamed Otis Great Necropolis, and the capital city became Blackhorn City. Various taxes were introduced one after another, turning the former kingdom into a graveyard for the dead. And this country has lost everything it once had. When Otis realized that he had ruined the kingdom, he needed a new way to fill the gaps in his territory. After much deliberation, he planned a war against the Human Federation. Unfortunately, the war meticulously planned by Otis and his supporters became a stepping stone for others, allowing the vampires to take advantage of the situation. With swift fighting, they crossed the border directly and arrived at Blackhorn City. Vampires control the undead using rotting corpse. Therefore, with such a huge number of skeletons, it's hard to doubt that the real enemy behind them isn't the vampires. But at this point, the mastermind behind it all is no longer important. Even if they knew who it was, they couldn't stop the attack on Blackhorn City. Whether the enemy is a vampire or not is no longer important. What we need to consider now is whether we can survive today, Otis said. Necromancer Yarlin shook his head. Your Majesty, there is nothing I can change about this matter, nor can I offer you any advice. You always have this attitude, as if I'm the one who killed Amanda. Otis's tone was somewhat angry as he continued. Fine, if you don't want to talk about it, then forget it. If the city can't be defended, then we'll die together. The vampires won't let me go, but do you think they'll let you go? Yarlin remained silent, standing still. Otis roared, fine guards, seize the museum. Anyone who dares to step out will be executed. Yes, a squad of skeleton guards has surrounded the Organ Museum. Otis left in anger, and Yarlin silently walked back into the museum. Dusk. Vampire Army, War Room. The hanging nightstone cast a soft light. It illuminated the long table below. The doors to the room opened one after another. The heroes entered one after another. Everyone gathered around the long table, awaiting the final arrangements. After everyone has arrived, Amanda then gently tapped the long table, drawing everyone's attention to it. The next second, Amanda waved. A stream of golden fluid flowed from the necklace around her neck. A three-dimensional square city is formed on the surface of the long table. Amanda began. Blackhorn City, a level 15 city, has two types of defensive towers, Arrow Tower and Magic Tower, on each side of the city wall. One side of the city wall has 8 Arrow Towers and 4 Magic Towers. As they spoke, the golden city on the long table began to change, and a corresponding number of Arrow Towers and Magic Towers appeared on the city wall. This method of explaining the battle plan was something no one had ever seen before. While feeling incredulous, I listened very attentively. Amanda continued. The troops were divided into 3 routes, launching an attack from the north, west, and east respectively. The 3D map on the long table has changed again. Golden soldiers, advancing towards the city in a U-shape from north to west and east. The flying dragons and airships also joined the battlefield one after another in the story. Amanda recounted the story in detail. The three-dimensional graphics are changing in practice. The timing of Bone Dragon's entry, the role of Skeleton Vulture, and the timing of airships' arrival were all planned. Even someone who doesn't understand tactics can see the battle plan. Time passed slowly, and the explanation of the arrangements was finally completed. Wait until all the arrangements are complete. Rochuan finally asked, Amanda, why is the south gate left empty? What if they run away? Amanda calmly replied, give them a chance to escape, and at the same time, teach the Federation a lesson. You can't just play dirty tricks. A cornered beast struggle will only unite the enemy in a final desperate attempt. But if you give them hope, chaos will break out in the city. Otis not only needs to defend against external threats, but also needs to be wary of internal threats. Same. The south side leads to the Human Federation. Once you escape through the south gate, you must continue fleeing south. Otherwise, with such a large army as the Vampire Clan, you'll easily be caught and brought back from any other direction. At that time, a large number of deserters will rush back to the border. Even a scare could make those cunning guys in the Federation wet their pants. This can also be seen as a lesson for those who try to play tricks. Amanda didn't explain much, only saying that the federal government should be taught a lesson. Rochuan scratched his head. Oh, I see. Once everyone had no doubts about the battle, Amanda nodded, clapped her hands lightly, and continued. Everyone remember, after breaching city wall, those who resist will be killed on sight, and those who surrender or are innocent must not be killed indiscriminately. Yes, all right. All of you return to your respective units and wait until nightfall to prepare for the siege, Amanda said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded and left the room. Night slowly fell. Dark clouds obscured the moon and stars. The entire land seemed to be soaked in ink, pitch black and so dark that one could not see their own hand in front of their face. All I could hear were the rapid footsteps and the cracking and grating of bones. The undead do not have human vision, while vampires can see more clearly at night. Only the transmigrators accompanying the army continued their operations in the dark, following the army. Are you nervous? The 3, assigned to the transmigrators in the west side, huddled together and chatted in hushed tones. No, I'm not nervous, the other person replied. Don't be nervous. Why are you stuttering? Is it because I was born that way, or is that not allowed? Okay, it was an hour ago, so it counts as innate. The man paused for a moment and continued. After this is over, will Boss Fang Hao give each of us a bone dragon as a reward? Then we can ride dragons. How awesome would that be? Dream on. You're on the territory channel now. There are so many transmigrators. If we divide them like this, Master Fang Hao won't have enough. And even if we divide them all, it won't be enough. The nervous, stuttering man said. I'm saying that not everyone who participated in this battle participated. That's impossible. It would be good enough to have command of a few thousand skeleton soldiers, like in the Battle of Grey Iron City. Bone Dragon, you're really dreaming. What's impossible? I heard that Boss Fang Hao gave Dong Jiu a bone dragon already. And there's also a purple hero. This person retorted again. That's Sister Jiu. What are you comparing yourself to her for? Seeing the two arguing heatedly, the third transmigrators felt somewhat helpless. These two are too serious. They start arguing as soon as they start chatting. When the 2 men started fighting because they were afraid of the butler, they changed the subject, saying, have you heard? Foreigners are buying photos of Boss Fang Hao. A clearer photo can be exchanged for a green card. Blueprint. Sure enough, this statement came to fruition. The two stopped arguing abruptly and immediately looked at him. Why are you buying photos? I don't know. Maybe they're fans. After all, the second-ranked Aragon is always showing up on the channel to recruit league members, and many of the girls in China are his fans. Wow, even in this world, there's still this whole fan and idol thing. Who knows? I don't think so. Could it be that those foreigners have some kind of curse or something? I saw in the movies that foreigners would burn photos and cast curses on them. How do you burn the photos in the Lord's book? Just as the three of them were squatting on the ground, chatting animatedly, then Spirit Binding Guard came over and said, Commander Asidi, I need you to make some hemp rope. Come here quickly. The three immediately stood up and followed the Spirit Binding Guard to the back. The night grew even more intense. Due north, the central military region. Your Majesty, it's almost midnight, Dong Jiahua whispered as he approached Amanda's carriage. Amanda, sitting in the carriage, looked up at the pitch-black sky. He said in a deep voice, Give the order to beat the drum. The messengers who had been waiting around quickly dispersed to relay the command. Thump, thump, thump. Soon, the sound of war drums rang out all around. A gray-white halo enveloped the undead army, and the drumbeats gradually merged into a deafening thunderclap. At this point, the undead in Blackhorn City probably only then realized what was happening. The undead of the vampires have already taken advantage of the night. It forms a concave shape surrounding Blackhorn City. Attack! Amanda's voice rang out again. Messenger relayed the order again, and Dong Jiahua opened the city lord's book to pass the message to the other transmigrators positioned around the heroes. The undead army, moving in unison from three directions, began to advance rapidly. The ground began to tremble incessantly, and all I could hear was the sound of bones rubbing against armor. Blackhorn City. The towering watchtowers spotted the movements outside the city immediately. When they spotted a dense array of grayish-white circles of light appearing in the distance, the undead soldiers, who had already heightened their vigilance, immediately realized that the enemy was about to attack. Ring the bell quickly. The emotionally deprived spirit cried out urgently. Before the spirits of the dead beside them could ring the bronze bell, the bronze bells in the other two directions had already begun to ring. This means that the city walls in the other two directions have discovered the attacking undead. Thump, thump, thump. The resounding chimes echoed through the city, enveloping the entire Blackhorn City. Squads of undead soldiers came from all over the city and began to climb the city wall, preparing to meet the enemy. At the same time, a large number of defensive items began to be moved onto city wall. Everything had already been arranged. The moment the bronze bell rang, everything proceeded in an orderly manner according to the original plan. At this moment, Otis, dressed in heavy armor and accompanied by several bodyguards, strode over. He glanced down at the approaching enemy below, then looked away. He turned to the person beside him and asked, What are the enemy's movements? A necromancer general immediately stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, the enemy has launched an attack from the north, west, and east simultaneously. No trace of the enemy has been found outside the South City. They surrounded three directions, but left one open. Otis began to guess what the other party meant. After thinking about it for a moment, he continued to issue orders. Be on guard at the South Gate. Also, anyone who approaches the South Gate without my permission will be executed immediately. Yes, Your Majesty. Skeleton Hero acknowledged the order and quickly withdrew. Otis continued looking at City Wall. They began loudly issuing defensive orders. They urged the soldiers to speed up the moving process. Time passed little by little. It felt like facing death, filled with tension, panic, and fear. Even the dead would find it difficult to remain calm and composed at this moment. Face the upcoming battle with composure. The army outside the city was getting closer and closer. The ground began to tremble in response to the footsteps. The enemy's army of skeletons surged forth like a raging flood. It's moving forward steadily, getting closer and closer, becoming clearer and clearer. You can see the red marks left on the armor, and you can also see the siege ladder mixed in with the skulls. Perhaps the enemy was too eager to attack and did not see the siege towers or other heavy siege equipment. Whoosh whoosh. Arrow Tower launched its attack, unleashing a barrage of arrows from its towering structure, thrown into the dense army. The effect is like throwing a stone into the desert. Nothing changes. The enemy continued to advance and reached the second line of attack range. Mage Tower has begun its attack. Streaks of black energy flew out from the magic tower. It crashed into the array of skeletons. The magic bullet exploded, sending nearby enemies flying and bone fragments flying in all directions. However, the negative effects of the dark attribute have no effect on the undead faction. Archers, prepare. The generals loudly issued their orders. The skeleton archers on city wall began to draw their bows, pointing them downwards. Put, whoosh whoosh, a dense barrage of arrows whistled downwards. The bullets pierced into the enemies below with a crackling sound. Meanwhile, the skeletons outside the city raised their shields to block the dense barrage of arrows. Prepare, master. The general shouted again, and the undead mage within the city began to gather magic. One after another, magic missiles were thrown into the sky. It transformed into an arc, soaring over city wall. They pounded into the enemy ranks with a series of loud thuds. On city wall, the undead tried everything they could to attack, attempting to slow down the enemy's advance. Otis kept issuing command after command. However, it had little effect when it landed in the enemy's army. There are too many enemies. At this moment, Otis looked down curiously. Below, all the attacking skeletons stopped in their tracks. The next second, a thunder spear, crackling with lightning, appeared in the hand raised above his shoulder. Otis was startled. Is it going to be thrown out? Sure enough, the thought had just crossed his mind. The countless undead simultaneously hurled their thunder spears. Call! A sudden whooshing sound rang out as countless silver thunder spears were hurled into the city. The dark, inky sky was draped in a layer of silver, dazzling and blinding. Otis shouted, "Hide! Hide! Clap, 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 clap!" Thunders rained down from the sky, crashing down on various parts of the city. Inside the city, swarms of skeletons fell as they were struck. The spreading electric arc covered the entire area. The same thunder spear is also happening at 2 other city wall locations. Clearly, the enemy had a unified battle plan, rather than separate plans devised by individual commanders. Otis was struck by a spreading electric arc. Fortunately, the bodies of the dead are also immune to the paralysis effect. I immediately looked up and saw that the city wall and the army inside the city had suffered heavy casualties. Damn it, it's definitely not a vampire. As an undead, he knew this must be the effect of an organ jar, and an organ jar capable of inflicting this thunder spear must be at least at the orange level or higher. How could vampires possibly possess the organ museum, let alone control the power of the organ jar? The large number of deaths within the city gave the enemy the opportunity to quickly approach. The footsteps below the city grew closer, and the trembling of the ground became more and more violent. Quickly, fill the empty seats. Otis roared, urging Soldier to continue the defense. Outside the city, on the east side, a region below ground level, covered by rocks, Rochuan led 50 spirit binding guards and 300 skeleton warriors. They were searching forward along the narrow stone path. Finally, the sound of the spirit binding guard came from ahead. "Lord Rochuan, we have found a stone gate here." Rochuan walked over quickly and examined it carefully. The stone gate is located in a very secluded place, and due to its age, it is covered with rubble and weeds. If Amanda hadn't been certain there was a secret passage here, I'm afraid no one can find this place. After confirming the pattern on stone gate, Rochuan kicked open the stone gate and said, "This is it, let's go in." Bang! Rochuan kicked out, and stone gate shattered into pieces. Smoke and dust rose, and gravel flew everywhere. Behind the stone gate lies a dimly lit cave. Rochuan said directly, "Let's go in." After saying that, he bent down and led the group of undead directly into the cave. The cave is not large, and the stone walls on both sides are uneven, showing traces of human excavation. As we walked along the road, the ground was covered with a layer of fungal carpet. Snakes and insects would occasionally dart out from the depths and attack these uninvited guests. These snakes and insects, whether poisonous or not, it poses no threat to the undead. After crushing some of the pursuers, they continued deeper into the area. Blackhorn City. The fighting between the two sides intensified. Broken bones covered the ground, and fallen swords were half hidden among the bones. Splash, splash. The vampire spirits, wielding the siege ladder, rushed swiftly to the city walls. The front end is inserted into the ground, while the other end stands tall. Bang! Siege ladder hooked on a city wall, its top barb firmly gripping the inside of city wall. The skeleton warrior below has his shield raised above his head. Start climbing quickly up the siege ladder. The undead on the city wall chopped at the ladders while simultaneously lifting pre-prepared rolling boulders and logs and hurling them downwards. They smashed down all the enemies who had climbed halfway up. It fell to the ground and shattered into a pile of broken bones. Beneath City Wall, more and more spirits began to gather. They huddled together, using each other's bodies for support, like a continuously growing mud monster. It keeps spreading upwards. Large amounts of rubble and logs fell from the top of the wall, preventing the expansion of the undead pile. Bang, bang, bang. In the distance, gunshots rang out in rapid succession. Skeleton Archer of the vampire clan has entered firing range, brandishing his new firearms and beginning a counterattack on City Wall. Orange's bullets rained down on the wall. The spirits on City Wall were suppressed and dared not show themselves. Firearms, damn it. It's them, Otis cursed angrily. Seeing that the opposing shooter was using a fire gun capable of rapid fire, he guessed the enemy's identity. I remember last autumn, the goblins from Merchant Alliance had approached him. It is said that an undead army is attacking the dwarves at Boffing Mountain. The goblins believe they had spearheaded the attack and intended to mediate and stop the war from continuing. At the time, he was still wondering how there could possibly be such a large undead force in this area. It now appears that the undead force that attacked Boffing Mountain succeeded. The dwarves acquired a large quantity of cannons and new fire guns. As expected, the vampire clan was just a facade. Behind it all is that newly risen undead. Damn it. Otis's empty pupils glanced down again. Below City Wall, the piles of undead are getting higher and more numerous. At this rate of spread, it will soon be up on City Wall. Otis immediately ordered, "Send the bone giant to assist in the defense of the city." Yes, after the order was relayed. Shortly afterward, heavy footsteps came from behind. This kind of footsteps is different from those outside the city caused by sheer numbers. It felt more like a series of enormous beasts approaching. The footsteps grew closer. The target was now in everyone's sight. This is a gigantic skeleton with a massive form. It is nearly 10 meters tall, and its skeleton is as thick and strong as a giant tree. There was only an emptiness in his eye sockets. No soul fire ignited. He was wearing somewhat old heavy armor, with thick iron chains around his body encircling his thighs. Bone Giant, Tier 10, Troop Type. Dozens of bone giants dispersed and headed towards 3 locations in the direction of City Wall. After reaching City Wall, I stopped. They stood there, somewhat stunned. This is a common problem with soulless troop types. They can only obey commands they understand. Moreover, after completing a command, it enters a standby state and remains stationary. Otis, standing atop City Wall, shouted, "Assist in defending the city and prevent the enemy from scaling City Wall." Bone Giant is taking action. A clumsy body stands on a section of the inner wall, leaning against the arrow tower beside it, its enormous head peering over the top of the wall. Looking down at the pile of skulls that kept gathering and spreading upwards, he swung the iron chain in his hand and brought it down heavily. Whoosh! The iron chains, like whips being lashed out, created a whooshing sound as they cut through the air. Bang! Like a cannonball falling, it struck heavily into the climbing pile of skulls. The pile of skulls collapsed and shattered instantly. The skeleton was torn to pieces and scattered everywhere. Numerous bone giants lashed out, slowing the onslaught of the vampire undead below. Bang, bang, bang. A hail of bullets began to rain down on the bone giant as he poked his body out. Bullets rained down. Bone Giant immediately bent his arm to block, but they were still knocked back and staggered, and one by one they could only hide behind City Wall. Bone Giant's massive body made him the perfect target for rifle. Under intense concentrated fire, the exposed bones were badly broken. Those who were seriously injured had their necks almost completely shattered by bullets, leaving only a third of the bones still supporting their massive heads. However, the next second, streaks of grayish-white light emerged from the surrounding dead bones. They converged on the site of Bone Giant's injury and repaired the broken bone. After the repairs were completed, he leaned out again and continued to whip the surging pile of skeletons with the iron chain. The power of Organ Jar. In the distance, seeing the Bone Giant reappear and fully recovered, everyone understood. This is the power of the Organ Jar. Otis, for Bone Giant, the equipment is a high-level organ jar. At this moment, the sound of something whistling through the air could be heard again over Blackhorn City. Looking up, one could see bone dragons bursting out from the clouds overhead and swooping straight down. Otis looked up and coldly ordered, "Conduct air defense and release the skeleton vulture." On the city wall, on the rooftops of buildings, one by one, the leather sheets were lifted, revealing the air raid shelter equipment underneath. The number has reached a terrifying level. Knowing all along that the other side had Bone Dragon, how could Otis have been completely unprepared? In addition to recruiting airborne troop types within the city, he also procured a large amount of anti-aircraft equipment from Merchant Alliance. This was for the purpose of targeting Bone Dragon. When Otis gave the order, the various machines that had been waiting in advance began to creak and turn. The sound of bows rang out, and anti-aircraft crossbow bolts, like javelins, sped out. It shot towards the direction of the Bone Dragon. Bang, bang, bang. The crossbow bolt struck the Bone Dragon, piercing its armor and embedding itself in its body. The Bone Dragon, having charged halfway down, stopped its relentless attack and turned back towards the city outskirts. They fled directly to the rear. The skeleton vultures that were released lost their target as soon as they took to the sky. Fluttering its wings, it landed back in the city to await orders. Otis was taken aback. The Bone Dragon's retreat was too decisive. It didn't seem like an attack, but more like a probe. Splash! At that moment, a horde of skeletons, composed of skeleton vulture and skeleton giant bat, rushed towards the city from all directions. Otis had no time to think and sent skeleton vulture up to fight again. The two sides' flight units collided in midair like two thick fogs. Amidst the piercing sound of bones being ground together, shattered bones and corpses fell from the sky. It covers the entire battlefield. The battle continues. Various heavy objects were constantly being thrown down from city wall. Bone Giant would occasionally stick his head out and swing his iron chain to scatter the enemies who tried to climb and gather. In the air, the two sides engaged in a continuous aerial troop-type battle. Broken bones fell like raindrops. Bone Dragon began to hover around, occasionally releasing bursts of dragon breath, clearing out the enemies on city wall. Both sides' troop types are tireless, which will likely prolong the stalemate. Behind the vampire army, Amanda kept her eyes on the battlefield ahead, while Dong Jieyue reported back from the other two directions. Bone Dragon made several attempts to probe, but no new air units appeared. He said, "Get the airships into the battlefield, keep your distance, and provide fire support for city wall. Nor do we need to use messenger to convey commands." Okay. Dong Jieyue directly opened the city lord's book and passed on the order. Not long after, from the sky behind us in three directions, a series of huge, slow-moving airships appeared. They began to appear in the sight of both sides. According to the plan, after arranging themselves into the corresponding formation, boom, 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 suddenly, streaks of fire appeared in the sky. The shells fell from the sky, arcing through the air, and crashed into the battlefield. In an instant, city wall exploded, and a large number of people were blasted into pieces. Even the Bone Giant on the battlefield was severely wounded under the barrage of artillery fire. Hiding behind city wall, he slowly recovered from his injuries. Ordinary undead in the area, or some undead acting as captains and commanders, it was blasted into pieces by the intense artillery fire. "Where's the anti-aircraft ballista? Shoot down those balloons." Otis roared, grabbing an undead man who was controlling the machine. The undead immediately turned their weapon around and fired it forward. The thick crossbow bolts flew forward, only to disappear into the night sky without a trace. "My lord, the distance is not enough." "They have calculated the distance perfectly," the undead said. "The shells fall from the sky, but they travel a much farther distance." The opposing side had clearly planned everything before sending the airship into the battlefield. Otis angrily shoved aside the undead in front of him and continued to roar, "Get Skeleton Vulture out and tear those airships to shreds." In the sky, Skeleton Vulture changed direction, attempting to bypass the Skeleton Vulture and Skeleton Giant Bat that were entangled ahead. "Go and attack the airship in the rear." But on the other side, they wouldn't be allowed to leave. They remained firmly entangled. But cannon on the airship never stopped for a moment. Dense artillery shells rained down on the city. Below the city walls, in a dimly lit tunnel, Rochuan and his group have entered the drainage system beneath Blackhorn City through a secret passage outside the city. The drainage system of the royal city was constructed to be extremely large and complex. It basically covers all areas of the city. Even an undead with the size of a troll like Rochuan can walk normally inside. Every now and then, a gray-furred mouse would dart past you. Don't be fooled by the fact that Otis has managed to run his kingdom to the point where there are hardly any living people left. But there are an unusually large number of small animals in this sewer. The dead don't need to eat either. So how do these little animals in the sewers survive? Rochuan, leading 50 spirit-binding guards and 300 skeleton warriors, advanced rapidly through the tunnels. The earth-shaking battle above caused the underground pipes to sway precariously as well. Gravel kept falling from the roof. Some places have even collapsed. We continued walking for another half hour. Found it, Rochuan said. The group had reached the end of the road and discovered a vertical ladder leading upwards. Rochuan led a group of skeletons up the stairs. Pushing aside the hidden stone slabs, an empty courtyard appeared. In front of the courtyard stood the tall and magnificent royal palace. However, at this moment, the place was completely deserted, without even a single guard. All of them crawled out of the tunnel. Rochuan opened a map that had been provided and identified the location. He said, Let's go. Let's go to the organ museum first. A procession of 100 people left the palace and wandered through the streets late at night. Every now and then, groups of the dead would rush past, and no one paid them any attention. Gradually, Rochuan and the others lost their fear and headed confidently toward their destination. Organ Museum, an important building of Undead faction. The location isn't far from the palace. It's just across 2 streets. Then I saw the Organ Museum, which was protected by the Spirit Binding Guard. The number of guards was also small, only 10. Rochuan led his men and strode straight over. The undead opposite immediately asked, What are you doing here? Rochuan replied, The enemy may have infiltrated the city, and the king has ordered us to send more men. The Spirit Binding Guard on the other side was clearly taken aback. Staring at the undead's armor, I felt it was somewhat different from my own. He then asked, Where are you from? I've never seen you before. Bang! Rochuan smashed his head with a punch, and the other Spirit Binding Guards immediately pounced on him. Using the sound of gunfire outside, they killed all the enemies undead. After it's cleaned up, Rochuan continued, You guys, change into their clothes and stand guard outside. Don't let anyone get close. Yes, the 10 Spirit Binding Guards began to put on their armor. Like the previous undead, they stood around the organ museum. The rest of the people hid in a corner not far away. Rochuan led a few people directly into the organ museum. Upon entering the hall, I saw a necromancer and funeral priest standing inside. Are you the vampires who attacked Necropolis? The leader of the necromancers asked. Rochuan didn't answer, but instead made a gesture to the side. The Spirit Binding Guards quickly entered the room, checked each room, and after confirming that there were no enemies, retreated back to Rochuan's side. Rochuan didn't answer the question, but instead asked directly, Who is called Yarlin? All the undead on the other side looked puzzled. The necromancer, who was in the lead, took another look at the troll undead opposite him and confirmed that it was not an undead created by him. Then, out of curiosity, she asked, Do you know me? So you're Yarlin? Rochuan observed the other person carefully. Yarlin replied, Yes. Rochuan continued, Amanda is besieging the city, and she sent me in to find you. Yarlin was stunned, and the rest of the funeral priests were also stunned in place. You're lying, Yarlin said. Do you think I would need to lie to you to get in here? Are the necromancers here really that stupid? This is just the first update today, and it's a bit messy. Necromancers and funeral priests were left speechless. In Undead faction, necromancer represents the scholar who holds the secret to immortality. Necromancers are respected and treated well by any undead faction. This is the first time a spirit has said that people like them are not smart. Your Majesty, you have been missing for 100 years without any news. How could you suddenly reappear now, especially in the name of the vampires, and attack Necropolis? Yarlin asked directly. All of this happened so suddenly. This left everyone somewhat hesitant to accept it. In the very beginning, during the time Amanda was missing, the entire nation mobilized to search for the queen's whereabouts, but to no avail. This led to Otis eventually sitting on the throne. So many years have passed, and suddenly someone sneaked into the city, saying that the queen had sent him. Rather than believing that the queen suddenly appeared, it seems more like an enemy's conspiracy. Rochuan thought for a moment and explained, Amanda awoke a few months ago and learned that the former Humleiner kingdom no longer existed. She then took advantage of Otis's attack on the Human Federation to launch this war. When Amanda let him in, his first task was to go to the Organ Museum. If there is another necromancer named Yarlin among them, tell him about your army. If there isn't such a person, or if Yarlin shows a lack of cooperation. Rochuan then cleared out all the people inside and destroyed the organ jar in the museum to weaken the strength of the defending army. Therefore, Rochuan's mission is the Organ Museum, and Yarlin is just one step in that process. Whether you believe or not, it doesn't change the outcome. Upon hearing the explanation from the towering troll hero opposite him, Yarlin fell silent. He still harbored doubts, but there was no point in the other party deliberately coming in to deceive him. After thinking for a moment, he continued, "If what you're saying is true, then the army attacking the city right now isn't a vampire, but Queen Amanda's army. If it were the Queen's army, many undead would not have died in today's battle. Even more so, many undead will be in the city, welcoming the Queen's return." Roshuan shook his head and corrected, "Amanda is currently just a heroic general under Lord, and the army she leads also belongs to Lord. But you are right about one thing. Amanda is the commander of the army, and this is also a war to restore the nation." Necromancers and funeral priests were processing the information contained in that statement. In other words, in order to restore her kingdom, the Queen joined the ranks of a lord and used the power of his army to reclaim the kingdom of Hundredfold. Doesn't that mean that even if Blackhorn City is conquered, it will no longer be the kingdom it once was, and thus became part of that lord's territory? After a long pause, Yarlin continued, "So, did the Queen send you to fetch me? Finding you is one of our tasks, but we naturally have other missions as well," Roshuan said. Amanda couldn't confirm which of her former retainers were still alive, but she was certain that Yarlin, the necromancer, was still in the Organ Museum. Necromancer is an indispensable force of the undead. Even if Otis were insane, he wouldn't kill a necromancer. Therefore, Roshuan's first step was to find Yarlin. Yarlin and Necromancer behind him discussed it in hushed tones. Then he turned around and asked, "Is there anything we can do for you?" Roshuan said, "First, take out all the organ jars from the museum. Once the organ jar is removed, the power of the army in the city will instantly diminish. Otis will know immediately that there is a problem here and send the army over. Then none of us will be able to leave," Yarlin said immediately. "It's all right. After we get it out, we'll leave. We'll arrange a safe place for you then," Roshuan said. Yarlin had no choice but to do as the troll skeleton in front of him said. Even if he doesn't do anything, the undead in front of him have a way to destroy this place directly, rendering the organ jar's effect ineffective. Arriving at each of the miniature buildings, I extended my bony finger and gave it a slight twist. Sizzle. The organ jars in the groove then rose up one by one. As the organ jar was taken out, the rings of light quickly closed and returned to the organ jar. At this moment, Necropolis, the organ jar effect on troop type, has disappeared. Seeing that the other party seemed relatively honest, Roshuan said, Let's go out." With Necromancer and Funeral Priest carrying an organ jar, they went out the door. Several hundred soldiers also emerged from their hiding places. After the group of undead gathered, he then took the necromancers back to the backyard of the palace, to the location of the sewer entrance. Roshuan said, "Yarlin, assign someone to lead the way for me. The rest of you stay here and don't wander off." Okay." Yarlin nodded and selected a funeral priest to lead the way. Yarlin and the others, carrying the organ jar, descended the stairs and entered the sewer. After they went down, Roshuan waved his hand and said, "Let's go to the armory." At the same time, the south gate was also in complete chaos. The place was densely packed with the spirits of the dead. People carrying large and small bags were stuck on the streets, creating chaos and congestion. Some former officials of the dead can also be seen mixed in with the crowd. Everyone knew that the enemy outside was about to breach the city, and the south gate was their only way out. He squandered his entire fortune and became a ghost. It's not meant to be used to die alongside Otis. However, the city gates were tightly closed, and the army was blocking the way. They stood ready to defend the city. "Let us out. I am the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Royal Palace. Now let me out. The city is about to fall. Why aren't you guarding it? What are you doing watching the city gates? Damn it. I used up all my life savings to become a ghost, and I haven't even lived a few years before the city is about to fall. Damn it, let us out. Who wants to die with Otis? That's right. This whole city was supported by my caravan, and now that you're dying, you're dragging us down with you." The undead cursed loudly, while the undead soldier guarded the city gate. He had already drawn the sword from his waist. He looked like he'd fight anyone who dared to get close. "Fight them. Charge out. We can't die in the city. Charge. Seize their weapons, and we'll get out of the city. Open the city gates." With a whoosh, the people gathered at the south gate rushed forward. They clashed with the guards defending the city. The scene instantly descended into chaos. Combat zone. The sounds of cannon fire, musket fire, and the howling of magic overhead still filled the battlefield. The silvery white thunder spear once again pierced the sky. Throw it at the enemy on city wall. Thunder spears rained down from the sky, leaving the ground littered with white bones. The war has been going on for an unknown period of time. The dead are tireless and have no concept of taking turns to rest. It looked as if the sun had already risen from the horizon, but the smoke rising from the battlefield still obscured the sky, making it look like the dead of night. Outside city wall, the broken bones were piled up into a small mountain against the city wall. More undead, trampling over the pile of bones, continued to climb upwards. Above the city, hundreds of bone dragons circled around incessantly, try to get close to the city and spit dragon breath at the enemies below. Inside the city, crossbow bolts were constantly being fired into the air, driving the bone dragon closer. The airships continued to unleash a barrage of fire. The sturdy city wall was riddled with cracks and was bombed beyond recognition by the relentless barrage of fire. The skeletons in the city are demolishing houses near city wall. Stone and timber were piled up at the site of the collapse. They are trying their best to repair the city wall, which is still dilapidated and could collapse at any moment. But the undead of the vampires still seem endless. As if they were inexhaustible, they continued to charge down city wall. Continue the defense. Clear out the enemies that are climbing up. Otis roared loudly. The vengeful spirits of the defenders pushed the skeletons that had climbed onto city wall off one by one. Stop them from climbing city wall. Wah! A howl, like a cry of despair, rang out. Behind the city, one after another, the dead with coffins hanging in front of them entered the battlefield. Soul coffin, 9th order troop type. They opened a crack in the coffin, and countless translucent ghosts flew out. It let out a painful howl and joined the battle. Soul coffin is a special troop type within the faction. His own combat strength is close to the 5th tier level. However, skill has the ability to absorb the souls of living beings. It can collect the souls of living beings within a certain area. It was absorbed into the coffin in front of him. They are transformed into wraiths they can control, thus rejoining the battlefield. This troop type often plays a significant role in battles against living beings. There is no shortage of soul absorption. However, it has far fewer advantages when dealing with troop types, which are also undead. That's why Otis only brought out Soul Coffin now, even after the battle had gone on for so long. The ghosts wailed, their translucent bodies passing directly through the thick city wall and rushing towards the undead outside the city. Ghosts themselves have no physical form, and their rank is not high. However, it still served as a disruptive and troublesome tool against ordinary skeletons that lack intelligence. It caused hordes of the dead to run around in circles, but what they're doing now feels more like a last-ditch effort. The overall situation is still tilting in favor of the vampires. Another burst of intense artillery fire fell. Large sections of city wall collapsed. The attacking skeletons, stepping on the broken stone bricks, climbed directly up the city wall and engaged in fierce battle with the defending undead. If this fighting continues, the people inside the city will eventually die. Bone Giant rose again, his iron chain just beginning to swing. Boom, boom, boom. As if waiting for them, they had just poked their bodies out. Countless shells then rained down on the Bone Giant. Bone Giant's massive body fell backward. However, the broken bones did not heal as they had in the past. Otis was startled and quickly looked towards the battlefield. But then they saw halos of light shrinking from the edge of the city toward its center. The organ jar's power has vanished. Yarlin, you damn thing. Otis cursed. His first thought wasn't that someone had entered the city, but rather that Yarlin's necromancers had pulled out the organ jar at the crucial moment. Otis was furious. These guys are really going against me at every turn. He summoned his personal guards and loudly ordered, "Take men to the organ museum, execute Yarlin, and have the remaining necromancers return the organ jar and imprison it." "Yes, Your Majesty." The guards received their orders and, staggered amidst the gunfire, hurried toward the organ museum. Without the support of organ jar, the fighting strength of the soldier in the city was reduced once again. Under the attacks of thunder spear and cannon, hordes of undead perished. Otis stood still, looking at the dead soldier. Bone Giant was severely damaged and unable to stand up due to the crushing shells. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions echoed from within the city. Otis turned around abruptly and saw streaks of firelight illuminating the city. It's in the direction of the armory. Boom, boom. Another explosion rang out. It was at the south gate. Explosions and battles erupted in the city. Countless spirits rushed into the streets, all heading towards the south gate. "Watch out for the bone dragon," someone shouted again. Hundreds of bone dragons, led by a giant, desiccated dragon, flew directly into the sky above the city. Its body swept low overhead, a red and black beam of light passing over the city wall. "Clear out all the undead guards above." After a quick sweep, the city wall was already deserted. Meanwhile, more bone dragons were circling, emitting black beams of light that enveloped the bone giants. The enormous body began to decay, and the iron chains covering it turned into molten orange-red iron, dripping down. In the end, like any other undead, he was engulfed in a black pillar of light. It turned into ashes on the ground. Eastgate, a massive, black storm that stretched to the heavens, began to swirl and spread throughout the city. Wherever it passed, whether it was a troop type or a house, everything was reduced to ashes and disappeared in the storm. More and more undead, marked with red symbols on their chests, stormed city wall. Like a flood, it covered city wall and spread into the city. "The enemy has launched their final offensive. It's over. We can't hold on anymore. My lord, we can't hold this place anymore. Let's retreat through the south gate first." A skeleton general tugged at the somewhat dazed Otis. "All right, gather the men and retreat with me," Otis said loudly, suddenly realizing the situation. He rushed down city wall and ran towards the south gate. Along the way, we encountered quite a few soldiers who had fled. They quickly gathered, numbering nearly 1,000. Without its commander, city wall was no longer able to withstand the army's attack. The city gates swung open instantly, and the army surged in like a flood. They marched all the way to the royal palace in the center. South Gate, Otis, leading nearly 2,000 defeated soldiers, hurriedly headed towards the south gate. Behind them surged enemies like a tsunami. After fleeing in disarray, they finally saw the roadblocks set up at the south gate and the soldiers guarding it. Otis was taken aback. "The roadblocks and the soldier are all here. What was that explosion just now? How did the people who escaped get out?" Without having time to think, I had already run to the roadblock. He shouted, "Quickly, open the city gates and come out with me." However, under the anxious gaze of Otis and the other undead, several more roadblocks were added in front of them. They stood in front of them. "What are you all doing? Have you all gone mad? Get out of the way and open the city gates." Otis angrily kicked over the roadblock in front of him. Otis's soldier couldn't care less about anything else. The pursuers were right behind them, so they all reached out and moved the roadblocks themselves. "Are you Otis?" At that moment, a tall skeleton walked out from the city gate. Otis was startled and immediately took the great sword from his back, staring warily at his opponent. It can be confirmed that this troll skeleton is not from Blackhorn City. Then there's only one possibility. When the south gate opened, these enemies sneaked in. "Who are you?" Otis asked, looking directly at the other person. "Clearly, your enemy." Otis also has a large framework, but it differs from Rochuan's. Rochuan is a troll undead with a naturally large frame. Otis, on the other hand, has a human skeleton. He is not as tall as Rochuan, but his bones are thicker. Such arrogance, Otis rebuked. With a push of his feet, he leaped high into the air, his giant sword slashing down at Rochuan's position. Otis was clad in heavy armor and wielded a great sword, but the movements were incredibly light and swift, yet full of explosive power. Rochuan jumped to one side. Bang! A loud bang. The great sword struck the ground, leaving a deep crack. Rochuan seized the opportunity, raised his fist, and slammed it towards Otis's face. The moment the punch was thrown, a thunderclap resounded. Otis held his great sword horizontally, blocking the oncoming punch with a bang. He staggered back 2 steps. Hearing the pursuers getting closer and closer, Otis didn't hesitate at all. He stopped his retreat and launched a forced attack, determined to open the city gates and lead his men out before the pursuers arrived. He swung his great sword repeatedly, creating a white barrier in front of him with a series of sword shadows. But Rochuan is also a melee hero and is proficient in combat. He moved swiftly, skillfully using the surrounding terrain to dodge all of his opponent's attacks. The more this happened, the more anxious Otis became. The sword in his hand danced faster and faster, but he still couldn't bring down the troll skeleton on the other side. The pursuers were already closing in. Otis suddenly kicked the roadblock at Rochuan, then turned and ran towards the city gate. Rochuan shattered the incoming roadblock with a single punch, then charged forward, once again blocking Otis's path. With a single punch, he forced Otis back. Otis roared, swinging his greatsword with his right arm and flinging it at his opponent. the greatsword flew out of his hand. Otis instantly pulled out a scroll and tore it open. Call. A giant, winding serpent of fire burst forth from the scroll. After leaping into the air, it swooped down and crashed into Skeleton Ogre in front of it. This scroll possesses enough power to reach the 4th level of magic. The giant sword flew straight at them. Roshwan's body retreated laterally. Bang! The giant sword flew out and spun as it pierced the door panel of the city gate behind it. The next second, a giant serpent of fire fell from the sky. It also hit the spot next to Roshwan. Call. The fire snake suddenly exploded, and rings of fire, half a person high, spread for several meters around it. Both the spirits of the dead from both sides and the rows of roadblocks were engulfed by the flames. When the flames disappear, all that remained were Roshwan and Otis, their bodies completely charred. The dense array of roadblocks and equipment around us has all disappeared. Bang! The smoke from the flames had just dissipated. In a flash, Roshwan shot forward again, unleashing a powerful punch that slammed into his shoulder. His armor was dented, and even his collarbone was smashed. Otis tried to retaliate, but Roshwan threw another punch. He broke his left collarbone again. His body was pinned to the ground by Roshwan, leaving him unable to retaliate. At that moment, the army soldiers from behind quickly ran over. Roshwan wiped the charred skull clean. Take it back, stepping into the palace, looking around at the familiar yet unfamiliar scene. It was like having a very, very long dream. In the past, when Amanda came here, she would see smiling members of the royal family and girls holding flower wreaths. You will see necromancers in long robes and ministers praising the queen's glory. It all feels like it happened just yesterday. At this moment, the place is empty. Everyone has vanished, leaving only himself, who now possesses immortal life. With a casual wave of his hand, the golden liquid flowed out rapidly. Her footsteps spread throughout the entire palace. A skull chandelier, a chandelier wrapped in a golden design. The skull sculptures on both sides have been transformed into golden armored soldiers. Step onto the white jade steps. Bone throne has become golden yellow. The white bone incense burner beside the throne has been transformed into a golden crane standing tall with its head held high. Holding an incense burner in his mouth, he focused intently on the incense, releasing wisps of fragrance. Amanda has just sat down on the throne. Lorana landed at the door, folded her wings, and strode in. After curiously looking around, he slumped into a chair, looking utterly listless. It's no use. The sun is coming out. You're not afraid of the sun? Amanda said. I may not be afraid, but we must still preserve the traditions of the vampire clan. Lorana shifted her posture, resting her long legs on the armrest once more. The war gradually came to an end, and the smoke that filled the sky gradually dissipated. The morning sun shines on the earth. What about the others? Amanda continued. Lorana said, they are following orders, guarding the army, and protecting important buildings and resources, and everything is going very well. Yes, Amanda nodded. Just then, footsteps sounded outside the door. Necromancer and funeral priest strode in, under the watchful eyes of several spirit-binding guards. When he saw Amanda sitting high on the throne, the necromancers paused in their tracks. Then, he shouted loudly, Your Majesty the Queen. Early morning, the sun shone through the window, casting a golden glow. Fang Hao opened his eyes and glanced at the watch on the bedside table. 7 a.m. It's already this late. He sat up abruptly and first picked up the Lord's book to take a look. No information was obtained regarding the Battle of Otis Great Necropolis. However, when I switched to the regional channel, but then I discovered that everyone was talking about Otis Great Necropolis. Every now and then, 2 more photos of the battle under the cover of darkness would be sent out from the channel. Fang Hao was also curious about the battle. He opened them one by one and looked at them carefully. The photo was taken at night, and if it weren't for the high resolution of Lord's book, I probably wouldn't have been able to capture anything. The first photo was taken outside the city. The troop-type skeletons are densely packed together, climbing the city wall. 2 other photos captured the bone dragon and a fierce street battle in the city. From this perspective, it belongs to the Otis camp, specifically the transmigrators. The photo shows a dense array of dead bodies. It was another scene of complete darkness, which was quite frightening. As can be seen from the photos, Blackhorn City entered the urban warfare phase last night. In other words, Blackhorn City should have already been captured by this time. Why hasn't Dong Jiayue sent me a message yet? But Amanda is really amazing. We arrived in Blackhorn City yesterday morning and captured the city that evening. Is this city made of paper? I closed the photo and continued reading the other people's chat. The night has passed. How's the war on the undead side? It should be over by now, right? Sieges don't happen that quickly. In ancient battles, it was normal for a city to take a year or two to besiege. Normal my ass. There were heroes with all sorts of abilities in ancient times. Did Bone Dragon exist in ancient times? Stop spouting fancy words. What happened to those guys who posted photos last night? Have they been captured? Yes, I didn't sleep well all night, just waiting to see the news this morning. Me too. What are you talking about? What did I miss? Can someone explain this to me? It's simple. There's a big shot in the undead region. Two groups of undead are fighting over there. There are so many undead, it's terrifying. The regional channel is buzzing with discussion about this. But clearly, after last night's fierce battle, there has been no further news about Necropolis. It appears that Blackhorn City has entered the final stages of processing. I glanced at the World Channel again. The chat took a rapid turn, and it seemed no one mentioned anything about the undead or Otis. Only those in the regional channel continued to follow this matter. They kept tagging the people who posted the photos last night, trying to confirm whether they had all been killed or subjected to some kind of horrific sacrificial ritual. Having not received a message from Dong Jiayue, Fang Hao got up and washed up. Start your daily morning exercise routine. The environment inside the city is very nice now, just like walking in a park. Bunny girls are already training at the Blackstone training ground. Hee, the punches and kicks, whether they're powerful or not is hard to say, but the visual effect is still very pleasing to the eye. I've had breakfast. Finally, I received a message from Dong Jiayue. Brother Hao, Blackhorn City has been captured. Amanda has officially taken over the city and is currently arranging some work within the city. Fang Hao wasn't actually surprised by this news. After all, some pictures had already been posted before. After thinking for a moment, he replied, "Everyone has worked hard. There were no heroes or casualties, right?" Dong Jiayue replied, "Commander Rochuan suffered some burns, but it didn't affect him much. Everyone else was fine. In the battle, it was mainly the ordinary soldiers who charged ahead. Burn, but it's not a big problem. As long as there is no large-scale physical damage, undead heroes can be repaired. The fact that no one else was injured is good news." "Okay, that's good. Did Amanda say when you guys will be back?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Dong Jiayue replied, "Having just captured the city, Amanda is currently summoning her former officials. Good heavens, they're even summoning former officials. It's like something out of a TV drama," Fang Hao remarked. "Absolutely, it's just like a TV drama. Okay, let me know when Amanda is done, so I can go and bring Necropolis under our control," Fang Hao said. Even after a city is captured, the capture still needs to be confirmed through the throne of the city lord or the throne of the king. Therefore, Fang Hao will have to go there again at that time. Furthermore, those who participate in the battle need to be rewarded to incentivize transmigrators to join the fight. Otherwise, if everyone starts to play defensively and develop like me, wouldn't we all be lying down and doomed? Understood, Brother Hao. Okay, Silverwing City, the Hall of Justice meeting room. Leader, Doherty, Archbishop, Milton, Master of the Mage Council, Jijilia. The three sat at a round table, discussing the recent border situation. Doherty said, "The border has gradually calmed down now. The undead have all retreated to the border and have not made any further attempts. We still can't let our guard down. If the vampire army fails, Otis will likely regroup and attack the border again. We can't withdraw until we've confirmed who won or lost in Blackhorn City," Milton said softly. "Yes, I understand that too." Doherty nodded. Then he continued, "Is there any news from the church about Necropolis? Since Suhade's incident, the Federation has lost an important source of intelligence. News from the dead was never relayed back. This was a bit of a pity for all three of them. And they also complained that the bishop at the front was incompetent and couldn't even protect a single saint." Milton said, "Suhade was the one who kept in touch with the undead, but that connection was severed after his accident." But the archbishop didn't seem too disappointed. "It's a pity about Suhade." Doherty sighed slightly, then said, "It seems we will have to train another transmigrator to complete the plan of unifying all the transmigrators within the territory." Jijilia then spoke up. "Mage Li Rong is a good candidate. He is capable and performed exceptionally well in this battle. I've heard of Li Rong too. He's the owner of Xianming Tower. He's quite capable. If we can trust him, he could be a potential candidate," Doherty said. "Li Rong's frequent attendance at balls for the powerful and wealthy has given her some fame. Indeed, especially this time, his performance was no worse than that of the generals of various cities. He is worth training." Jijilia also strongly recommended. If Suhaid hadn't gotten into trouble, she wouldn't have brought up Li Rong. But now that Suhaid is dead, only Li Rong remains who participated in this war. So she can push her own people forward. It's worth taking a look and seeing. Doherty had just begun to speak. The Archbishop gently put down his teacup and interrupted the two with a smile. Suhaid is not dead yet. I think Suhaid is still a more suitable candidate. Both of them were startled. The news coming back from the front clearly stated that Suhaid was dead. A huge gash was cut into his neck, and he was left unattended for another night. How could he still be alive? Seeing their confusion, Milton explained softly, I naturally have a way to bring him back to life, but it will take some time. As for integrating the transmigrators, we should proceed as planned. Oh, is that so? But then I thought about it. It's not entirely unacceptable that the church would pay a price to raise the dead. Milton nodded. Suhaid's death is suspicious. With the ghost's abilities, it's impossible for it to kill him silently. Don't reveal this for now. Let's see if there are any new clues when Suhaid is resurrected. The two were startled. Milton means that someone within the Federation used the ghostly ambush plan to kill Suhaid. This is no small matter. Well, that's fine too. Doherty didn't say anything more. Since Suhaid is all right, let's proceed as planned. As for the murder of Suhaid, neither the Hall of Justice nor the Mage Association said anything. They consider someone who is absolutely not their own. All right, that's the plan then. Let's discuss the withdrawal of troops from the front lines. Blackhorn City. Inside a temporary bedroom in the royal palace, Amanda stood in front of the bronze mirror, looking at herself in it. The mask, crown, and golden armor all turned into golden liquid and seeped into the spatial necklace around her neck. When they were completely naked, revealing skin that looked like a dried corpse, Amanda then turned away, no longer looking at herself in the bronze mirror. Yarlin clapped her hands gently beside her. A row of funeral priests came in from outside. Each person entered carrying a new mask, crown, and costume. They began to dress the queen in these garments. Not long after getting dressed, Amanda looked at herself in the mirror again. The golden royal robes were embroidered with eerie and noble patterns of the dead in delicate purple thread. A gaunt face, adorned with a new golden mask, its shape and lines embodying feminine beauty. She wore a jeweled gold crown and held a scepter that symbolized her queenly status. He stared for a while before turning and walking outside. Let's go see our old friends. Yes, your majesty. The undead followed behind the queen, heading towards the palace. Outside the royal palace, splash, rusty shackles dragged a heavy iron ball. The stone pavement is marked with worm marks. More than a dozen undead heroes, wearing shackles, were escorted by numerous guards towards the royal palace. These are all captured undead hero generals. Otis, walk on the far left edge. His armor was removed, and in addition to the heavy shackles, he was also bound with layers of iron chains. Except for his feet, which could still move, his body was wrapped in iron chains like a rice dumpling. Otis walked forward without saying a word. It knew what it was going to face. It's nothing more than the victors showing off and mocking the losers. Similarly, he was also very curious about who his enemy was. With such a large force and so many high-ranking heroes, they have that kind of capability. Why hide your identity as a vampire and launch an attack here? Your Majesty, what should we do next? Skeleton Hero asked from the side. The dead, unlike living beings, are not filled with unease and fear before their judgment. Their emotional expression is relatively mild. Only their souls remain, exhibiting a strong aversion to the threat of death. Otis glanced at the city from the side and said, perhaps we will recruit people. Such a large city still needs people. He brought all the captured heroes over, guessing that some might be recruited. Heroes who are willing to submit will be pardoned and given new positions. After all, Blackhorn City isn't a village. It requires a lot of people to manage it. I will not submit to the vampires. Red Duke, a hypocrite who became leader by deceiving women, is not worthy of Blackhorn City. The god of death will punish these deformed children abandoned by the gods. The undead walked forward, cursing their enemies as they went. These undead, who were merely blindly participating in the battle, received the message that the enemy was still the vampire army. Otis, at this moment, was not in the mood to tell them the truth. Keep moving forward. Suddenly, amidst the cursing, a curious question arose. These statues, what are they? Otis looked up and glanced to one side, where the calm soul fire suddenly began to fluctuate violently. His gaze suddenly shifted to the other side. Golden statues stand on both sides of the road. Guards wielding halberds, warriors blowing horns with their heads held high. And then there's the human girl holding a flower wreath, with a sweet smile on her face. All of this, Otis suddenly felt a sense of disorientation. It felt like stepping back 100 years to the time when the kingdom of Anglianel was still called the kingdom of Anglianel, and when he was still human. The skeleton heroes, who had just been cursing the vampires, suddenly became noisy. Among them were many elderly people who also recognized the scene before them. What's going on? Who orchestrated this war? Tell me, Otis shouted, looking at the guards escorting him. At that moment, his calm emotions turned to fear and dread. I'm no longer curious about who used the vampire clan's name to start the war. Instead, they were afraid to move forward and verify their guesses. No one answered him. He was simply pushed along by the guards, and it increased its speed of movement. As they got closer to the palace, as more and more golden features appeared around them, Otis and his colleagues became increasingly uneasy. Finally, they were pushed and shoved into the palace. The floor was covered with a long, thin carpet. On both sides stood tall and imposing golden-armored soldiers. Above, a golden throne, and a golden crane holding an incense burner. Everything was so familiar. Otis and others were pushed to the center of the hall. The entire room fell silent. Bone King, Otis, Orange Tier 5 hero. Holy crap, he's Otis, the 5th tier orange hero. Only orange? How can someone be a leader? That's terrible. Exactly. There are tons of orange heroes in the army, and they call themselves kings. No, I heard that Rochuan hero is the leader of the troll race. Normally, reaching the orange level is already considered a leader. Can the place where trolls live compare to this? This Otis is too weak. That's right. Amanda is dark gold level. No wonder we didn't have any pressure attacking along the way. She's only orange. His title is still Bone King. What a waste of that title. Wow. Have you guys gotten this picky now? Orange hero is being talked about like trash. If you guys don't like it, give this hero to me later. Heroes are being issued to lower ranks too? Then I don't want Bone Dragon. I want a hero. With so many heroic prisoners below, they might actually send them down. Really? Give me Otis, that piece of trash. Amanda hasn't even appeared yet, but heroes and transmigrators have already gathered on both sides. The heroes didn't communicate much, but the transmigrators have already started discussing it. Before the war began, everyone knew that this was Amanda's war to restore her kingdom. They also call Amanda Queen, which sounds incredibly powerful. In the end, it turned out that the one who usurped Amanda's throne was an Orange Tier 5 hero. Orange also had several heroes among the troops. I was somewhat disappointed. They directly labeled Otis as useless. As the group of transmigrators discussed among themselves, soft footsteps could be heard coming from the corridor to one side. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Amanda, dressed in a magnificent robe, was accompanied by a group of necromancers. Funeral priest walked out with a great sense of ceremony. At this moment, some of the captured generals in the middle knelt down and shouted, "Queen." Otis's soul fire throbbed violently, and he instinctively bowed in respect. But in the end, he straightened his body. His gaze was fixed on the woman who was slowly walking toward the throne. Amanda sat on the throne. Look at the central Otis. He spoke in a deep voice. Otis, it's been a long time. Otis felt a sudden, sharp pain. Suppressing the unease deep within his soul, he spoke. Amanda, you're still alive. Are you surprised? If I were still human, I might be a little surprised. Otis continued. No, I sensed your emotions. You were surprised and frightened. Amanda, don't be so arrogant. You are no longer the queen here, and the kingdom you once had no longer exists. Otis shouted. Necromancer Yarlin stepped forward and reprimanded. Otis, watch your tone. I didn't care about my tone, Yarlin. I was wondering why you were always going against me. So you knew Amanda was still alive and were just putting on an act for me, weren't you? You shameless bastards, Otis continued. He knew he wasn't going to survive. Amanda would definitely not let him off the hook. Giving in now would only make him die without any dignity in front of his former subordinate. Yarlin wanted to say something more, but Amanda gestured for him to step aside. Amanda gripped the scepter in her hand and asked, Otis, I will destroy your soul. Do you have anything to say before you die? Otis' soulfire trembled violently again, remaining rooted to the spot. After a moment's hesitation, he said, If I manage this place well, will you come back? Amanda looked at him and shook her head slightly. No, as expected, it's you, the queen of wisdom and courage. Otis, whose body was encircled by chains, bowed slightly. Amanda tapped her scepter lightly. Guards, take Otis away. destroy his soul, and seal his remains. Several guards entered and took Otis away. Otis did not resist and followed them outside. After Otis left, Amanda turned her gaze to the rest of the captured heroes. There are 12 people in total. The undead possess the speed of heroes, making them far more convenient than living beings. Those whose lives are coming to an end, but who still want to live, will try to find refuge with the spirits of the dead. Undead faction also welcomes hero units to join its ranks. So even after fighting their way to Blackhorn City, these skeleton heroes are still around after last night. When they arrived, they cursed the enemy and the vampires. Now, they all stand obediently in place, remaining silent. Amanda continued, I am the queen of Hunliner. Some of you should still remember me and are willing to stay and continue to serve the kingdom. I will forgive your sins. If you are not willing, I will destroy your souls. Her words were very direct. It also gave everyone the opportunity to choose. Splash. In an instant, 7 heroes knelt down, saying, Your Majesty, we are willing to serve the kingdom. The remaining undead heroes remained standing in place. The attitude has already been made clear. The queen nodded and said no more. Take these 5 people away and destroy their souls. Splash. The person was dragged away, and the sound of shackles rattling could be heard. The transmigrators whispered among themselves. It feels like such a waste to kill them like this. They should be heroes. However, given the scene and atmosphere, no one dared to say anything. Amanda then had Yarlin examine the remaining 7 people. It's confirmed that this isn't a hero whose soul has been modified. Heroes modified by Necromancer possess a soul that is absolutely loyal to their territory and the Lord at the time. This method of binding the soul cannot be modified again. Unable to pledge allegiance to Amanda, nor to be a hero to the transmigrators. Even if they agree on the surface, they might turn around and stab you in the back to avenge their lord. After the matter of the prisoners is dealt with, Amanda continued, Yarlin, Your Majesty. Yarlin stepped forward. You will accompany the Blood Hunter commander to take over the southern border army and, as a vampire, deliver the peace treaty to the Federation, Amanda instructed. Yarlin was slightly taken aback, but then saw a ghost with a huge bat wings on its back walk out from the side. They naturally understood who Blood Hunter was referring to. Yes, Your Majesty. Yarlin accepted the order. Blood Hunter nodded in agreement. All right, you two, set off now and travel on the Bone Dragon. There must be no delays along the way. Yes. The two immediately left the palace. Amanda continued, Scholar Nielsen, you are now in charge of the Organ Museum. Rochuan will take command of the city's military camp, and Spencer and Asidi will lead troops to strengthen patrols in and around the city. Orders were issued one after another, assigning tasks to all the heroes and transmigrators. During the previous battle, the South Gate was wide open. Many unexplained deaths occurred, with many spirits escaping through the South Gate. The city was in chaos at the time. The current priority is to restore order to the city and then gradually move our own people in. This period of time is not short, and she also has ample time. Silverwing City. Jijilia, accompanied by her guards, walked out of the Hall of Justice. She didn't feel very involved in the morning meeting. The only mention of the Federation's support for Li Rome was interrupted by Archbishop Milton. That saint is still alive. This was quite unexpected for her. The Church has never publicly revealed that it possesses the ability to resurrect living beings. If this were to happen, the Church's influence in Parliament would increase significantly. With these thoughts in mind, I walked out of the courtyard gate. From afar, one could see the transmigrators standing guard beside the carriage by the roadside. These transmigrators were people Li Rong had placed in the city to deliver messages to Jijilia. The fact that you're here now means there must be some new information. Jijilia boarded the carriage. Come in. Transmigrators also respectfully followed inside. The carriage began its journey towards the association. Inside the train carriage, Jijilia asked, Is there any more news? Transmigrators immediately replied respectfully. President Jijilia, Sister Li just sent word that she has received intelligence that the war in Blackhorn City is over, and the vampire army has achieved final victory. What? Jijilia frowned, and the crow's feet around her eyes deepened. The war in Blackhorn City is over. The vampires have won. Transmigrators confirmed again. Jijilia's face remained filled with surprise. After a long pause, he finally asked, Is the intelligence reliable? And how did Li Rong know that? The transmigrators on the other end immediately replied, The intelligence is very reliable. Sister Lee said she contacted the transmigrators who were with the vampires on the expedition and obtained first-hand intelligence. Jijilia was even more surprised. Li Rong acted swiftly. Suhaid had intelligence from the undead side, and his influence increased rapidly. Now that the vampires have successfully occupied Blackhorn City, they immediately have intelligence about the vampires. At that time, her influence will definitely increase. Ding ding. Jijilia tapped lightly on the car wall and said, "Turn around and go back to Hall of Justice." The carriage immediately turned around and stopped again in front of the Hall of Justice. Jijilia alighted from the carriage and led the transmigrators inside. As he walked, he instructed, "Repeat what you just told me to the people inside. Don't say anything else, understand?" Clear. The two walked through the corridor and went directly into the conference hall. Amanda moved very quickly. In the afternoon, Fang Hao received a message from Dong Jieyue. He needs to go there to formally occupy Blackhorn City. Fang Hao had no choice but to wash up carefully and, with Xiaobai's help, put on his aristocratic formal attire. Now that the territory is wealthy, Fang Hao has acquired more formal attire. Moreover, it was divided into many types. Different styles of formal wear are required for gatherings of different factions. For example, the dress I'm wearing now is dark green, and the collar and cuffs are embroidered with golden ghost patterns. It exudes an air of nobility, yet also carries a sense of awe and chaos. After everyone is dressed, I glanced at the time. It was 1:20 p.m. Perfect timing. I'll have dinner there when I attend the banquet. I got a one-page map from Dong Jieyue that showed the location of Blackhorn City. After recording, released the teleportation light screen. With Dimitrika in tow, they walked directly into the light curtain. 2 or 3 seconds later, when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a magnificent royal palace. Underfoot was a dark brown carpet, and all around were various golden utensils. It really does fit Amanda's aesthetic. Lord, everyone in the hall bowed in unison. This includes heroes within the territory, transmigrators who fight alongside them, and many former retainers of the kingdom, whom Fang Hao has never seen before. In particular, those former officials whom Amanda had recruited again. While bowing, they were also curiously observing the humans who had suddenly appeared. A human lord? To possess such a vast number of undead, yet it was just one human. It's simply unbelievable. No need for such formalities, Fang Hao said with a smile. Everyone straightened up. At this moment, Amanda descended the white marble steps and said softly, "Lord, this way please." As she spoke, she took Fang Hao's hand, and they walked together up the jade steps. Above, 2 golden chairs are placed side by side. Amanda led him to the left and gestured for him to sit down. I then sat down in the seat next to it.